Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Command Center live from beautiful Montreal, Canada, Quebec. Hello, I'm Milos the Medic, your host here on the show, at least the first half of it. And joining me on the analyst desk are my wonderful colleagues from APAC South. Hello, Mandy.
Hello.
James. James, you look so cute today.
Thank you very much.
Mandy, you also look fantastic.
Why, thank you.
I just appreciate that you singled me out first. You know, I feel like Mandy always gets the attention.
Can you turn to the other side?
But people want to see this. The makeup artist went a bit bananas today, and I'm all for it. But it is Valentine's Day after all, so
It's Valentine's Day.
what a shame that we have to eliminate a bunch of really cool teams.
We're here.
Yay!
Yay. Always look on the bright side of life, as the song goes.
Of course.
Wonderful song. As many would know, I know you're a connoisseur yourself, James, of music. But there's been music to my ears in Invitational because there's still a shot for G2 to remain in competition, which is going to take a lot, right? It's a hurdle to go up against FaZe Clan, but FaZe hasn't had the best of times either. I want to set the stage for this game in general. You lose today, you're out. That's it. You're going back home. It's just one singular best of 3. But these two at their times, in their heyday, were the top 2 teams of the regions.
Yeah, I do feel like fans of both FaZe and G2 are sipping on a little bit of copium right now, just like Jacob and Jesse were watching their favorites from NA. But isn't it crazy to think that this is potentially 2 of the biggest name teams in Rainbow Six Siege, and one of them will be eliminated in the match today. I remember once upon a time back in Rio, which that clip was from, these 2 teams were in the finals.
Yeah.
And now here they are about to be eliminated.
It is crazy that we are going to send home one of the 2 biggest names. You're either G2 win or you're FaZe up, one of them, but all the chat is going to be really noisy today. I can just tell you that. It's going to be a big game.
The Brazilian bias, the Southern Hemisphere bias is starting to show a bit, especially after we heard it with W7M yesterday. But anyways, I'll set this on the side. We'll start talking about FaZe Clan, but Demo actually sat down with the team and asked them a few questions, so let's see what they had to say.
Acredito que nossa performance no Invitational na fase de grupos não foi a que a gente tinha esperado, né? Infelizmente a gente foi para Laue, mas eu acredito que a cada jogo a gente vem melhorado, a nossa comunicação também melhora, a gente consegue ver nossos erros e acredito que a gente consiga sim ser campeão do Invitational, buscar nosso objetivo final. O time que eu prefiro jogar, eu não tenho muita preferência. Qualquer time, o time que quer ser campeão do Invitational tem que ganhar de todos os times. Então, eu acredito que tanto a G2 quanto a Wolf são times que não são fáceis de jogar, mas a gente é um time qualificado para ganhar. Acredito que o que a gente vai implementar para os playoffs são mais variações de play. A gente não vai repetir tanto o que a gente fez no Group Stage. Então acredito que a gente vai vir como um time mais estruturado e mais preparado. Durante os playoffs, eu acredito que o time mais difícil seja a W7M, porque eles são um time bem estruturado, eles têm 5 players bons, são um time agressivo, jogam junto. Eu acredito que é um time que tem potencial para ser campeão do Invi também. A preparação para o time acho que vai ser a mesma. A gente não tem mais nada que fazer de diferente. A gente trabalha vendo VODs dos times, a gente trabalha conversando, estudando. Acho que a preparação vai ser a mesma. A mensagem para os nossos oponentes é que, para eles ficarem ligados, que a gente não vai ser a mesma FaZe do Group Stage, cometendo erros bobos. A gente vai vir com um novo mindset para ser campeão.
Well, FaZe Clan, what a name, what a title. This team has been through so much. It's been a roller coaster of a 2022. They were 3rd at Six Invitational last year. They didn't qualify for the Charlotte Major. 2nd place in Berlin, just a single round away from stealing that from Rogue. Top 8 in Jönköping, but they dropped down to 5th place domestically, making way for some new talent within Brazil. Teams like W7M have started to make these old guard look a little bit washed.
Yep, for sure. These guys starting to phase out, as some might say. Getting old here in the server, and yeah, I think that FaZe, look, all right, they're going through a bit of adversity at the moment. They've had a new roster change. They're starting to get into their flow now at the Six Invitational, but maybe a little bit too late.
Yeah, Well, maybe a bit too late. We heard it from SSG before we kicked off, or we started our pre-game desk here. Well, we don't have anything to lose. In this case, I mean, they do, FaZe does, and G2 does. And handling things under pressure is always difficult. Keep in mind, in those days, you're talking about the success days of FaZe, cameraman was always at the center of that success, and that is no longer the case. Adapting and changing to that is a Herculean task for a team that was built around a leader like him.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with that as well. I think that cameraman going, when you lose a support player, you lose a workflow is like the essential thing in the server, right? Support players, they have their ways of doing things. And then when they get lost, you've got to find another support player that has their own little finesses and niches for doing things. It just changes your workflow a little bit. I think FaZe are taking some time to get used to it.
Now, if we turn our attention to G2 on the other side, we see a team that has had quite a bit of success here, but taking an L yesterday that we did not expect at all. Wolves taking them down 8-7, 8-7. It could have been a 2-0 the other way with just a flash, Mandy.
Yeah, for sure. I think for G2, they've been making waves through this SI, but I think that loss yesterday was really, really shocking to most of us. That was a big upset. Wolves, they've taken a long time to find their momentum inside of the server, especially at this SI, whereas G2 seem to be going off with a bang. Seeing them in the loser bracket here, I don't think any of us expected.
Yeah, G2 have had quite a tumultuous year as well, and it's funny with G2. I think every time people looks at this team and says, another failed super team, they're not going to amount to anything, they come out and surprise. In Berlin, they did surprise me by making it to the playoffs. And here, to be honest, they've had some fantastic games. Their opening match was incredible. They took W7M, or they took Koi to 3 maps and beat them. And then they took W7M to 3 maps and almost beat them. So we've seen a lot of potential in this new rejuvenated G2 roster.
So what about our map bans for this series? They will look as such. 9-map pool for top out. We're left with 3. Mandy, guide us through it, please.
Let's go through it just quickly. G2 are one of the teams that have the most ambitious map pool at this SI, in my opinion. These guys are comfortable with playing all 9 maps. That's something that we know about them. I think it really works with their new leadership system with Alamau taking over that IGLing role as well. He's able to just be the ideas guy and create universally applicable ideas. So we can see from G2's perspective going through the ban phase, immediately taking out Cafe, perfect against FaZe Clan. This is like their iconic map. Also taking out Skyscraper is another very high-performing map for FaZe Clan. Not only that, but G2 have also picked Villa, which is a very low performing map for FaZe in comparison, right? And so G2 are fully gone for this counter ban and counter pick strategy in the veto.
The interesting thing for me about G2 making those ban choices is it means that they've let Clubhouse slip through, which was their first ban in the last 2 vetoes. They also vetoed it against W7M as their 3rd ban. And so FaZe, of course, have pounced on that. They also picked that against Secret and destroyed them 7-2 in that incredibly decisive match that actually qualified FaZe through to the playoffs. So FaZe are going to pick that, and G2 are going to have to show that they've made some improvements since they lost Clubhouse to Koi in the opening match of SI.
So now, we're looking at this in general. Are you telling me G2 have a wide map pool? They can actually work well with FaZe, maybe not as much, few disappointments in general in the groups. Is there a favorite that you would see through this all? What does it depend on? Operator bans and players and who shows up. A lot of factors.
Look, to me, I've had a look at the numbers of how these teams performed on the first 2 maps. So Club picked by FaZe, Villa picked by G2, and I do think that there's a pretty strong reason to believe both teams will be very good at their own map picks, and we will, as a result, be likely heading to Theme Park. I'm a little bit biased. I like Theme, and I haven't seen it yet, so I really hope we do get there.
I think for me, just playstyle difference, it's actually quite similar between them. I think that FaZe have really gone into this, lent into this problem-solving identity that we've seen them go throughout the year. They change their attack approach almost every round. They're very flexible and adaptable. G2, on the other hand, they've got Alamau now as their IGL. He is the ideas guy. That was his identity since his Team 1 days, and now him being the leader of this roster, they've got a brilliant structure that's really universally applicable. It's going to be very, very tight.
Well, James, Mandy, thank you very much. Our game is set and ready. Let's toss it to our casters. G2 versus FaZe.
Thank you very much, Milosh, and yes, welcome here. Happy Valentine's Day. Will you be ours? Well, Hap has a small poem to convince you.
Roses are red, attackers are blue. There's 20 seconds left on the clock. What you gonna do?
Thank you very much. We entirely prepared that, and we are ready now to see if there is any love lost between G2 and FaZe, two huge teams. One of them will be dropping out of SI 2023 and the lower bracket.
Yeah, so we are in that lower bracket indeed, and we mentioned it earlier on socials today. Out of these 12 teams that will be playing, 8 of them are going to be sent home back to their loved ones as a true Valentine's Day gift. Now, it's going to be one of these two teams first, and there's plenty of big names that could be going out here today, so lots of focus needed from everyone involved.
Yeah, you can see it, you can feel it. There's now nothing else. For every single game they've played before up to this point, there's been a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of life and a little bit of chance. That ends here. We no longer have second wins. It is just the game or you're gone.
That's it. Do or die, quite literally now. And G2, of course, they came in from the upper bracket. FaZe already coming in at a 4th seed, did not really have another choice. And G2, they picked Wolves. Thought they were gonna have a good game, but a 7-8 loss and a 7-8 loss against them, well, knocked them down into the bracket we're currently in. And I was just walking around yesterday, and you know, I just overheard some of the conversations, and G2 was like, we're going up against FaZe. Right? It's like any of the other teams, I think they would have preferred out of the lower bracket to go up against, not FaZe. And there is a small bit of history between these two, of course. I mean, if we are going back over the past, well, even more than a year, dates back to Six Invitational 2021. Of course, that was a completely different rosters we have. So we're going to be skipping that one, but that was a 7-2 victory for FaZe. Then we had the Berlin Major, where these two teams, you know, faced off against each other twice.
Which is a lot more familiar.
That was going to be in groups. A 7-2 victory for FaZe on the first attempt on Tuesday. And then a 7-0 victory for G2 on the second one.
So really, it's anyone's game.
It's anyone's game,
is what you're
right
telling me, Mr. Steinhab.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
It's kind of what you want, because they alluded to it on the desk as well. The structural change of an IGL is a very big one. It's one that can really revolutionize things. But in a strange way, so is changing a talisman player. It's long sort of been heralded of the success of Citizen, the capabilities, and, you know, I can't say the specific reasons for rotations and changes into a roster. However, you know that for a while, G2 were trying to build a structure behind him to allow him to work, to allow him to hit the heights he could potentially. It didn't quite come together, so in a way, removing him. Also, not too long ago, swapping out Shas. That is, for my money, just as big, if not in some ways, maybe a bigger structural change.
I mean, he was the last standing member of the 2 World Championships they won, and then they pull in Fabian, who also won these 2 World Championships. So, to some extent, there's still a little bit of that. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say the word.
Say it.
Dynasty. Left in G2. But a completely different team now, all different players. None of them have won it. And that is a very convincing poll here. 79% of you back at home believe G2 is going to be winning it. 21 of you are the true believers in FaZe Clan.
To be honest, you know, FaZe have had a rough tournament. There's no sort of two ways about that. They obviously weren't participating in the playdate yesterday because, well, they had fallen short. They'd fallen into the just scraped by spot in terms of teams that got into playoffs, and now they have to try and fight their way on the lower bracket every single time. It is the same sort of thing for G2 at this point. Obviously, yesterday they could not hit the mark. They just didn't have the rhythm that they wanted to, or had been able to have previously against Wolves. However, it was the best Wolves have played, and it was 2 max OTs.
Yeah, and it wasn't, you know, just a one-off game either, because they instantly went through and won the next game as well to put themselves in Place Belle on the main stage one way or another. So Wolves surprising many, G2 as well with that loss, but today is Revenge Day.
As Valentine's often is.
Is okay.
Oh no, sorry, I'm getting my...
It's a different kind of...
I'm getting my holidays confused.
What kind of holiday are you talking about?
Revenge
holiday.
Valentine.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little known holiday on the 15th of February. It's a very lovely atmosphere in the tournament today.
It is. Everybody has nice little hearts everywhere.
We bullied Parker into getting one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I just went up there and I just took it.
Yep.
They asked, do you want a heart? It's like, yeah, sure.
Of course, of course. Who wants a heart? Thank you, mate. His idea, though, is more shooting them. He has been phenomenal throughout this tournament. He was very powerful for G2 yesterday. However, there was a little bit that was missing in terms of the sort of lockdown, the coordination, the timeouts that were called, highlighted that. Said we're going for these hero plays. We're not quite hitting the mark. We need to go back to the team play that we do so well. Against a team like FaZe, you know, that's a trickier thing to sort of ask because they have these huge gunners where, you know, the team play might be something. If that slips away again, you could be in a very difficult situation.
Good Black Eyes set up to provide an extra bit of utility and information to G2. Valkyrie often seen to be banned, but, you know, with those current bans on the board, it is to make it a little bit easier for the attack to break through, which means then instead you will have to worry about potential cameras to be out there. There's a Cade on Bandit and ban on Cade and Bandit. There we go. Is going to be making sure that only mute jammers are really going to be stopping any of these breaches to go through quickly. And as the first breach has been made, a keeper barrier instantly will be reinforcing that just to make sure that it is going to be taking just a little bit longer before these attackers are going to be able to clear out that top floor.
And that's always the game. Wasting time, long it out. It's a long series and a long sort of showdown here for them to see if they can slip their way through with Souls. Getting the opener, a great pinch. They led them into the engagement with the DMR. You can see some pressure was coming onto the back end as well. Blur is still sat. He was hoping to get a sort of slink away fade on the swing on Blue and Adam, but it wasn't really handed to him. So the rest of G2 have actually pulled themselves back down. They're getting some eyes, some ideas. They have C4s. They have the element of danger and surprise. But it's waiting for now for FaZe, who are doing a pretty slow approach here.
It is a pretty slow approach, but the thing is as well, they don't really need to be super quick from the get-go because of the fact that it is just so easy to open everything up. Like, especially these hatches, there's only going to be impacts that can stop one of them. And that means the others should just be opened up without any pressure really coming through.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Goes one. Camera will be spotting out on the line with that DMR that was deadly earlier on in the round. Souls, the one and only kill so far in this game.
I mean, that's what I mean. It feels like there's a moment where this needs to kick into a higher gear here for FaZe. They're still getting themselves a stretch, but the hatch is locked in kitchen. They have some pressure above Moto. Vidaking is just going to start droning that out and getting some eyes. You've got a first bit of movement down to the basement floor, 30 seconds. They finally got eyes down the corridor, and they've got the breach onto Church. Ooh, there's no immediate pressure coming at the back of it. The E1D pops off to limit some of the movement. The Buck is hunting above kitchen as the swings don't quite come yet, although it's Virtue that gets caught out first on the breach. Looks away, gets the planter. Benja tucked in the corner, goes for the next, but look at the timer. Benja, he's tucked on one side, Alamau on the other. Huge fight for Benja to win. Alamau's above the hatch, waiting and watching. Doesn't quite get the kill. The swing goes away from him. There it is, one more! No! FaZe! And from nothing to everything in 30 seconds.
They had the entry, but they didn't did much for the side itself. A triple wall take came to be. And Benja just wreaking some havoc right there, making them go full panic mode. Alamau the same, of course, dropping that hatch. It's not a great start for G2 there. It's a sign they probably wanted to win.
Attackers need to locate.
Now, I was just thinking about the bans a little bit more. And you saw G2 go in with the first ban, which was the Maverick. But then at the same time, you're seeing the Cade and you see the Bandit ban, and you kind of start thinking, the Maverick ban is actually, like, useless now. Yep. Maverick wouldn't have done anything.
Nope.
So a bit of play going through with those bans. FaZe Clan making sure that the attack ban not really impactful for the side of G2.
It's also, you know, but in that, with the Bandit being the ban there and the limitation on the Maverick, the Kaid was also G2's ban. They
true.
could have opted for something else if they wanted to. They sort of, they had a rule and a role and they wanted to go with it. The Bandit is the biggest surprise, don't get me wrong. And it makes some of these sort of top holds potentially different. You can sort of ban trick off. We've seen it done a little bit more in international play than we see it, I think, in same nation play.
Yeah, it is funny how, you know, we barely see any of these bandit tricks happen anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Dangerous with, you know, double heart breachers, which basically makes it impossible. Yet on the Six Invitational, I think we've seen a couple of them happen already. So
we've seen them successful multiple times. And it's a surprise, but it's also, you know, that's, I guess, time is cyclical. Everything returns at some point to find itself back into the fight. And here we go, FaZe. Once again, setting themselves up. And, you know, I said it was a cautious, a bit slow approach before. It came down to the wire of a 1 versus 1 fight. If Alamau had locked in the first kill on the hatch instead of not quite getting the full lock in.
And not having to drop as well as a result.
Not having to drop as a result. It could have been a very different story. It could have been a different round. And that's the danger of a push that late on. FaZe, they're putting more attention towards the site much earlier. Obviously, it's much easier to do on this site because you're onto the direct wall from the top. You don't have to try and shepherd people down. But I think that is something that will work way more in their favor.
It should be, gives them a bit of an extra opportunity to lock out these individual players, start working on pinch maneuvers, find the kills as a result. Of course, there is going to be that mirror window inside the bathroom that will be problematic, and you know, still the fact that the CCTV wall will stay shut. There's nothing really either on the side of FaZe to use to get rid of that because, you know, no Maverick, and you know, they didn't bother bringing a Thatcher because why would you? In this current ban system with Kaid and Bennett gone.
Astro trying to find the fight and the mirror window, but the fight finds him. Virtue came around in the back end with Doki doubled up to help with the search. So Sophia's gone, including some of the pressure from underneath, which is a bit of a blow. They don't have any grenades to try and get catches from under. They don't have any other sort of long-range pop utility at this point. They're more of a blunt object trying to fight their way through. Pre-firing against the mirror window, they slip on by. It has been smashed and broken. The C4 will just slip its way out, but gets removed. There's Candela's blinding Doki, but Cyber goes down in amongst the smoke. There's some support. Vidaking has dropped in logistics, rotating his way around the back of Blur, but Blur is off the board. Alamau tucked on a corner. There's someone coming behind him. Vidaking is going massive on the top of the stairs. Is downed and stopped, but 2 versus technical 1, 15 seconds. It's all been revealed on the camera. Cannot go for the pickup, and we are back level.
That's all we need. We need to fucking read them.
Well done there by G2. So quickly listening. Just some good jobs being given out.
Was because the Koi VOD.
Guys, fake them, right?
Ah, you heard that?
Yeah.
That was from the Koi VOD, that kind of call that just came through. So they have learned something there. The strats being shown on camera. Lovely. Just to go back on what happened there is, you know, quick openings happened from FaZe, but the one point they struggled with is putting up the pressure from multiple sides. You might be wondering, you might be, you know, a new viewer and wondering, like, why is that? Why did they not have the pressure from multiple sides? And that's because they still had a player, G2, active inside of CCTV, able to use that window to get rid of the entire balcony, the entire highway section of the map, because there was just no way of challenging it. And normally that's a quick fix, because you open up the CCTV wall and suddenly it is not as safe to play there anymore, because there is the opening from either side you need to worry about.
5 seconds left.
But the mute jammer stopped that from happening, and there was no Thatcher, because again, why would you bring a Thatcher if Kaid and Bandit are off the board? You're supposed to be opening up whatever wall you want to open up anyway already.
Back down to Chuck. With this stretch, with this extension all the way to the top, they've got the walls done, the mute jammers, and Turkey and Benja doubling up. It's one of the things that you need those two players to sort of play together, to pop off, to give themselves the extension and support that would otherwise be sort of missed, especially when you're trying to find these engagements with FaZe. You know how good FaZe can be on guns. Multiple of the players are always on the cusp of breaking or setting records. So sort of matching the fire with that being that one step ahead. The motion that came around underneath was exactly what they needed. There's a little bit more direct attention paid. The slink away. Doki was the first catch last time on the opposite side of the map. This time, he has been able to slink his way back towards the site before the pressure became too hot. All 5 players have given it away, the territory on the top floor, but that doesn't mean FaZe know this. They've still got to clear it. They've still got to steadily make their way through.
That's it, right? Like the drones still need to come through, the angles still need to be checked, and with the barricades being out there, that always leaves you to wonder if someone might be coming in from the strip later on, so that really needs to be droned out well. Otherwise, Cyber is getting himself near the actual kitchen. There is going to be a spot, like, okay, a player is currently near the kitchen, everybody, be aware. Zelamau is continuing with his cardiac sensor to see if he can take down any of these players to come through with a potential C4. As rotations are being made, that is just to prepare for FaZe. A lot of damage done to Alamau. Cyber didn't even know that that was a player down there.
See, you say that.
The drone came through.
The drone just came through. Cyber's been playing the buck. They knew that there was a threat at the pulse. I don't think they expected the pulse to sit around.
That's it.
But they did that so the pulse would have to move away and wouldn't be able to read and get a clean C4 through. The impact trick on the first bit of X-Kairos. The second goes through. Doki has one more. They traded places and is ready to see if he can try and stop this once again. They're hoping the bait's against it. There's the first that pop off, and a little bit too late as the hatch does get opened.
Didn't probably realize that there was another set of X-Kairos on it, so didn't toss his impact grenade. Now it's opened up. 2 players on the main stairs out here, spotted by Alamau. Of course, one is currently not active, but he spotted him going down earlier, and now they definitely know because the opening comes through to C4. Takes down 1.
Benja threaded the needle there with the info that was coming from the pulse. There's a drive down in the middle. Cyber's able to get 2 with Astro 1 on the back end, and they've just strong-armed the site. FaZe decided to take it, so they did.
Sometimes that's just what you gotta do. You just run through, you go for those kills and are successful. And maybe a bit too tunnel there on the information that came down from the polls. They thought, you know, okay, this is still where the push is coming from. Suddenly you find yourself with a buck at your back that takes you both down. And that's again the Arsenal and Church taken care of by FaZe. A little bit more problematic this time. I mean, they weren't quite allowed to do what they wanted to do. And I say a little bit more problematic knowing full well that Blur and Alamau were quite problematic in the first round they played, almost clutching it out, but this one was structurally a bit more problematic for FaZe. They didn't have the openings they wanted, as they get stopped in their tracks trying to make them.
I think that was it, and that's that sort of demonstration I talked about where a lot of FaZe players are capable of that 0 to 100. They are so talented. With the hardware that this game offers, they're able to swing themselves into these engagements and make motions happen when a lot of other teams would be stumped. And that's one of those tricky challenges to get over. That's one of those hurdles where you sort of go, we've got to adapt this, but how you have to sort of lay traps, have preparation. Obviously, FaZe aren't untouchable. They are in this position because they've been beaten a few times, including by EU teams. G2 just needs to try and step in and be another one of those on the list. Benja, loose, potentially problematic. He's prepped the window. He's waiting for some approach to come above him, and if he goes unchecked, the C4 could do some damage, but that's a little bit of time away.
And FaZe, of course, they are a very well-experienced team. Just slight changes that they've made since the last couple of tournaments haven't really worked out just yet, but you know, they're still alive. They're still in that lower bracket, and that means there is still going to be the opportunity for them to make that incredible comeback run. And G2, they might have had a lot more expectations for themselves after the groups. They came in quite confident, and the confidence was kind of shattered yesterday against Wolves. So pre-play C4, they're going to be fully aware of that, so that has to be taken down first by Bullet. Going to be doing that without too much issue. Continuing down towards the bar area, we'll be trying to go for some fishing with grenades, I reckon.
Doki gets the first. They're suffering a bit of the spray through the soft either side, and Blur pulls himself back round with a bit more structural support, but the crouched walk in, do they know? I don't think they have the awareness, and with the swing going to come onto Jim, the pre-fire gets the connection, Cyber gets one, Bullet gets bit back a little up the stairs, and there's a response from Benja. But does he know that somebody's behind him? It's a consistent chasing of a tail. There's a reveal, pre-fire in a fight, but the pressure on time is obviously on FaZe. With Astro getting one, they're above, they're below. He's got to choose which way he wants to try and fight his way out of this, and well, he's gonna maybe opt for the top. It's the pull of the pin, the reveal of the player. A great take from Benja. He's going back for the next as a bite happens on the site itself for 2 versus 2. There's another bit of audio, another bit of pressure on the barb. He doesn't want to get pinched. He moves out of the way, pulls the grenade, forces the player. Bullet pre-firing the angles. Benja doing everything he can. Soul's offering some support. They're not quite sure where he is, but there's not many places he could go. And he's leaning into one more fight. Doesn't get the lockdown though. And he's almost defined this round. Virtue is all that's left.
A lot of damage done there by Benja, staying alive, fighting for as much time as he possibly can. All Virtue needs to do is hit one of these shots, and then he can go on. That's the first. Only left to Souls now. The flashbang comes through. 12 seconds. Just save your time, Virtue. He needs to go.
He didn't have the kit.
He didn't have the kit. He needs to run all the way around as well. This is going to be very problematic. He needs to just go for a plant attempt, but there's no time for that. It is going to be G2 to win it out. And Benja did define that round, but still the technical timeout will be called by G2.
I mean, that was it. If it wasn't for the heroics on those brick stairs, it could have slipped away. Let's see what Fabian's got to say.
What's from my chat? Just first to replays.
Relax. 15 seconds.
Again, instant. Maybe now? He's talking. There you go.
I have this. You hold that. We need to communicate these small things. We have the pulse information, so Carl can give us the information we need. We calm ourselves down, and then we take the last 2 rounds, because you fucking got this, guys.
Guys, let's play the hard drum again, okay? But don't fall back.
We need a mute. We need a mute for the hard drum.
Play a mute and that.
They use thermite anyways.
Yeah, I just need to play master side, like that's it.
They use thermite anyways.
I can't play.
Let's go, boys.
Open the wall.
Church wall.
They will open anyways though.
Guys,
I'll play.
I can play mute on set or not. Take your win, so I know what it is.
No, guys, play the same way, but this round, for example, I'm gonna play.
Okay, well, the bit that we got there, play the same way. They know what they need to do. They know that they can play these rotates, you know, play these movements and things, and it's just that confidence. It's just that pressure behind it, and it's getting it done. Not the easiest task.
No, it's definitely not the easiest, especially against a team like FaZe. Like, they might have not had the strongest tournament so far, but it's still a big name to go up against. Now, there was a bit of discussion going on there. It's basically the same what we've heard yesterday when we were playing against Wolves as well. Like, you need to communicate what you're seeing. You need to communicate what you're doing. You need to communicate what you need. In short, talk to each other. Make sure everybody knows what you're currently facing. And then there was a bit of discussion about whether or not to bring mute. LMR said they will open up anyway, so it's not really big deal to bring it. So they haven't brought it in the end. And Doki now will find himself onto the mezzanines, just trying to hide himself. Seeing if he could go for a pick somewhere. It's not being pushed so far yet, and Cyber also didn't quite scan the garage, because why would you if it is going to be a basement approach? That means they might not actually be fully aware of the fact that Doki's out there.
Well,
I don't know.
Now they know. Tucked himself down, pre-fired the angle. As we've seen, there's a great demonstration of how to close down Doki in this sort of area of the map, and they did it pretty well before the break. Over onto Jacuzzi wall, there's Blur not too far away. Instead of being down in blue, he's actually rotated up red to offer some support towards Doki. Astro, in the meantime, creeps the fight with Benja over onto Jim. Alamau rotates underneath to offer some support, an escape route with Benja, the pair of them, hot-footed away. Doki, in the meantime, he's getting a rotate too, but he finds Souls on the way through and can tuck tail, and he's almost tempted to go back up. Lean into more of an engagement, but I think he's convinced otherwise. They don't want to overextend their hand. They have an entry, and they know they can pressure time on the site.
Good call coming through right here to instantly rotate back. Want to be making this a turtle as quickly as possible. A lot of players were spotted as well up top. So again, all that droning that was done needs to be done again until you've taken the space, until you've taken the rotates out. It's going to be a black eye located inside strip. Not really that, you know, threatening to decide off phase for now, but still want to deal with it. Hatches are opening up, and that means...
Oops.
Oops. The other one actually, at least... There we go. There's one actually. Is that 1 or 2 on? That's 1. That's not going to open it.
No.
Doing it from there because they're afraid of the fact that there might be a C4 coming. But if they don't actually check this could be very problematic because they think it's open.
No, I mean, he's looping around to the window, so he'll find out soon enough, and there's the finishing job. I think he sort of realized...
Missed him again.
Missed him again.
So many pellets just wasted.
That is a lot of pellets. They finally get it open. 30 seconds, kitchen hatch falls. They're going to put the pressure onto the triple wall as well. Again, no electrics to stop it, no mute jammers. It's going to turn into the fight and the brawl that we've seen happen, but with about 10 less seconds in the pockets of FaZe. So those moments we talked about being dangerous before have just absolutely exploded. The smoke canisters stop the break, the breach on the wall itself. They're trying to swing through. I don't know if they were trying to stop it, but Talamau to take the head off of Astro. That's not a rotatable breach. I'm assuming they impacted the Selmas on the wall. They're trying to stick the plant on the back end of Armory. Vidaking, he's going to see if he can heads down this, but they just pull him back up.
The time ran out there. First, he had to move due to the smoke canister that was slowly removing his HP from the thermite.
Jim?
And then as they had to rotate around, so did G2. They just threw the bodies at it. Yes, there is a player on the main stairs, but if like 4 people run past at the same time, like what are you really going to be able to do against it? So 3-2.
Let's go, baby.
Leading now for the first time in this match. See if they keep it up. They're going towards the bedroom. Managed to win this one all the way back in round number 2. Crossmats are going to be set up, and just to quickly reminisce about how G2 won this site.
Memories.
I mean, it's just memories from half an hour ago.
Shadows of my mind.
Go ahead, no worries.
No, I'm just giving you background.
Okay, yes. They were able to hold on to the side due to the fact that the balcony was unplayable. And the balcony was unplayable because CCTV was under control of G2. Because of that mute jammer on that wall, they were unable to open up. And again, FaZe is not going to be bringing a Thatcher.
Nope.
They were thinking about it, but they swapped off him to go to the Ying, I believe. And together with that Monty, this could be just a plant attempt that...
Oh!
Pain.
That is just one of those time moments. Great take from Bullet. The gun doesn't have a lot of bullets in it, but boy, is it pinpoint. Soki removed very early on. You're looking at an Azamulus round as well, which is a bit of a blow. We talk about how powerful that operator's been in the meta, in this tournament, in this game, in the right hands, and they get more powerful the longer the round goes on. So a bit of a blow there. Can FaZe Clan push behind the pace that has now just been allowed to them? They went for some drops and pressure, some bit of back and forth before, and then got the crouch and the swing round into the side itself. But here, away from the jammer, this is the reason why people don't really bring the Thatcher, because it's a radius. So if you can find a little spot out of the dome, well, that mute jammer's not stopping nothing.
Doku is also the player that was playing inside the CCTV, so if they want to be using that to their advantage again, G2, someone else needs to, and I believe that Virtue has taken that job upon himself. As you can see, the CCTV wall is still shut. There is still that mute jammer, and that means they only have some Excaros left now. And you were talking about that dome. That means they can only open up the top part of it, which is not really going to be giving you a good angle to stop him from doing so.
A minute 20, and they still have control of CC, they still have control of the back end, but with the focus that's being paid towards construction and now it's Jacuzzi, they're going to see if they can try and pull something back. The Monty causing problems, the drone getting the reveal of the player, the mute jammer, pocket EMP isn't going to stop anything, so they try to impact it to offer them something else, but There's pings on the player. Astro, he's got himself stacked in. They're hoping he's gone unaware, just tucked around in the corner. He hasn't. And I think he's going to maybe find out. No, they don't know about the man in the corner. It's a no! It's a triple! Absolutely massive, and FaZe have been ripped apart. A 2 versus 2, they at least stemmed some of the flow and got the bodies elsewhere, but I really thought that was theirs, planting behind the hard wall. Vidaking watching from the safety of the door itself. They swing and pre-fire a post-plant back on the end of Jim. Virtue, he's able to get the damage done to the player, just teetering on the edge. I'm not quite sure if they now know where the one missing thread is, tucked by the Kiba barricade, and it's dabbling and wasting time here, and Virtue's been unable to cement the kill. Now he's got to try and fight his way through the 2 remaining players. There's the one close to his left he doesn't see, and FaZe somehow pull that one over the edge.
FaZe managed to make it stick. They cleared the site at the moment that Benja was able to go for that triple kill. The support just fell right as he went active. He did everything, Benja did everything he needed to do. He stayed hidden, he wasn't droned out, he had an amazing round to come through. Just that the rest of G2 no longer in sight to protect it. Maybe they leaned a bit too hard into the bait. Not sending someone back fast enough to actually deal with a potential plant situation, not having anybody in logistics, for example, to just come by through the doorway. Either way, a huge round from Benja, but it won't matter in the end. It's FaZe to take the win and find themselves even out on this first half of Clubhouse. Now headed over towards the defense themselves and starting off an Arsenal.
Oh, an even half, but I mean, for that being a G2 moment where they could have locked it away, it only came off the back of the heroics of a single player. Still not the situation you want to be in G2. This isn't their map. They were brought here, as pointed out. They don't like Club too much. It's been a constant ban for a while. So having themselves on an even half, they can get a little bit of momentum here. If they can try and get an early attack round on the first to the second, we might be seeing a bit of energy, maybe leading all the way. I said this gun can be pinpoint from range.
Yeah, Saber leaning back into the fight though. Virtue has fallen off, so G2 not too keen on taking that early engagement for something that seems so insignificant on the long run. If you get that kill, great, but do you really want to be taking the risks, you know, fighting the Warden in CCTV on such a long angle without any possibility for a trade if you lose it? So it's the right call to just, you know, drop out Virtue and go for a different kind of approach, which G2's currently doing. As the drones roll through and the top floor is being cleared out, G2 no longer really have to worry about roamers because I believe they've all fallen back towards the site.
Says Alamau. He's trying to find himself quite close to the punch. The mirror window on the wall means that he can't really go too much further as of yet because he wants to be a bit of surprise factor. Benja needs to start opening up some of these angles, maybe drop the camera, make things a bit uncomfortable, get some clarity for the potential of the Candelas, but you also don't want to hand them a free body. The hero plays are what cost G2, by their own words, yesterday. They want to make sure that they can leave the day as 5 heroes still fighting in the tournament, sending FaZe home. 2 stories of destruction from the Buck there. Oh! Well, absolutely destroyed. Bullet.
He's going to need some medicine for that. It's a painful shot to be receiving as Benja here. And that's going to be putting G2 1 man down. 1 minute left on the clock, still preparation to do as they are opening up these hatches and formulating what kind of an attack they want to go for. I mean, Alamau is ready at the main stairs, but is the rest of G2 ready to follow up on him?
Well, you bait the first 2, so you know they're not tricking it, and then you can pull off the second, which they do there. It takes a little bit longer, but it's better than having your ex-Kairos wasted when you've lost that opening engagement as well. You need to make sure that what you have in the pocket is enough to finish the fight. The bounce of the grenade, remove the barb, hope to catch a close-by player, but look at FaZe. They're just not offering anything on the immediate gunfight. They've got that body advantage, they tuck themselves in, they're a little bit further from doors. The blinds start to come out on the back end, there's some pressure echoing but nobody has pushed behind it. You've got 3 FaZe players watching towards blue. The drop is instantly into Moto. The swing round, Alamau finds the first and finds the second on the back of it with Virtue. They're getting one back, but FaZe get a couple of bodies. In the meantime, Doki and Alamau with barely any time. They lose one more engagement. It's the swing round on the back end. They can't quite find the players, and FaZe hold on to the round.
I was going to say, such a beautiful execute coming down from G2. They took Church under full control. They lost players elsewhere, but that's fine. They had Church. They weren't able to get that plan down. Alamau gets dropped as he was about to be tossing in the second Candela. That was meant, of course, to be going in for the Arsenal. And FaZe, they lead again. Having just lost it for a little bit, instantly take it back now at the start of the second half. But again, you mentioned it, the desk mentioned it, this map is supposed to be FaZe's. The next two are slightly more favored towards G2. But if G2 is going to be able to throw spanner in the works here for FaZe on their own map pick, then that could be absolutely massive for the remainder of the day. Because don't forget, whoever wins this game needs to be playing another game in like 3 hours or something.
Yep.
Which means that there is a lot of fatigue that might strike.
There's a whole day.
5 seconds left.
Potentially. There's a whole long day ahead. And we had a long day yesterday as well. It was, you know, max OTs for both the maps that we had from G2. Both of them went all the way to the wire. They don't want to find themselves having to dabble that down once again. Obviously, with these maps, you know, Club was always going to be the bit of the risk, letting that through. There were moments where it could have paid off, but it's going to be trickier to prove here on their attack.
I was actually speaking to Liloon yesterday night, and she was saying, like, you know, it might have just been 4 maps, but during the last map, we could see our players start to just, you know, break down a little bit. Like, the fatigue was starting to hit. And that's just coming back to the point here. If this goes to 3 maps, whoever will be going through, they need to be having their stamina in order, because otherwise they might be finding themselves with some fatigue later on. Either way, Bullet looking to go for a bit of an aggressive swing outside. He's not finding anything as of yet, as new openings are being made. The bedroom and the gym, of course, are the site. G2 finding themselves mostly on the roof, still working out what kind of an execute they want to be going for. Candelas get tossed into logistics, but no one is there to really follow up on it.
So the Azami swinging and jiggling across the door there. They're not quite in a position as they hear the Kiba barricade get put up to stem against that. The wall has to get widened, and actually Doki is tempted to see if that's still a possibility. Blur's putting the pressure on the opposite end with Jacuzzi being popped open. Virtue as well gets them to rotate on CC, and they're just steadily prodding as the pressure starts to come through against Doki. He's driving himself in. He's pushed away. Alamau's dropped into logistics, and there's a fight going on either side of Benja, but it's Alamau that takes out Vidaking as the first entrant. You can see with the Solus hunting underneath, they're going to see if they can try and maybe get the planner. There's rotation from FaZe on the back end. There's a fight he just misses out on, and the C4 pops in from Bullet. Suddenly, FaZe have a man advantage, and Benja lost in the smoke. Can't see the end of the fight with Doki getting one of his own. A minute, some semblance of control on the side. The rotate into the shotgun on the back end, and there's one more for FaZe.
Holding on very strong there. Again, the initial kills came through, the initial momentum was there for G2, but FaZe in their experience, they managed to slow it down. They managed to basically toss up a brick wall that G2 ran right into. Still get that round. 3-5. Lots of focused faces, not much talking going on FaZe's side.
I mean, they know the business they wanted to do on this map. I think that's the main thing right now, is these rounds, these defenses are where we see why it's FaZe's pick, and yeah, those motions are well rehearsed. As I sort of called it at the time, when the pressure started to come across, they lost the opener with the Candelas. You had the 2 players running underneath, Bullet with the C4, and Vidaking as the Solace. They were sort of well prepared for, well, if everything else fails, we still have a play, we still have a shout. They got the C4 kill from underneath. They stopped some of the push from above, and then they went, okay, well, now Bullet can rotate up, and we'll still keep Vidaking underneath. We still have this option, and that's that sort of level of knowledge, as G2 just didn't have the person putting the pressure. They thought they could try and swing their way through onto site, maybe get a hopped up plant onto the bed to stop the pressure. But then you have the shotgun locked inside the bathroom still. That wall wasn't popped open. There was nothing to force them away from their shield that was still up.
It's kind of thing, like they did have the initial pressure with Alamau jumping in, but as soon as he got blown up, and there's no pressure coming now from other pressure points on the map, you're just going to be running into these brick walls that get some stuff. By the way, the opening will be made into the garage. G2 is going to try and attack CCTV. If there's any textbook attack in Siege, this is the one. And Doki for free has been given Cyber, but also the mezzanines right here. A hipfire headshot will save him just slightly, but this should be proving well for G2. Alamau inside as well. Blur, here you go for a plant.
They're looking for the fight around the side of the box. Virtue finds one themselves. Doki gets the last lock in, and it's a flawless for G2 out of absolutely nowhere. They stormed the breaches. Shouted some Portuguese.
See, that's the advantage of having a Brazilian on your team. They also have an Australian on their team. So, you know, they can always, you know, send sass back to whoever they're playing against. That's the true reason they picked up Alamau.
Hold your garage.
Hold your garage.
Oh, is that what he shouted? Hold your garage.
I mean, it was just perfect there. It was read the weakness, saw the opportunity.
Yeah, no, totally.
Snatched it with two hands. For all the compliments I paid on the previous round to how FaZe structured their defense and how they moved and manipulated, if you just absolutely blindside any of that and finish the round before they can finish thinking of plan A, let alone plan B, well, you find success.
I think Cyber, he was still, you know, doing some setup elsewhere, and he was about to be getting back into the mezzanine, but G2 already figured it out. They went in quickly, and that's a mistake FaZe will not make twice. They'll be making sure someone is in there this time. I mean, the thing is, I was talking about how you have that step-by-step approach and how that should be followable for a team like G2. But, you know, they already basically executed the whole step-by-step plan before we even got to explaining what it is. So that shows you the speed of the attack that they have just shown. It's going to be 5-4. That's going to be giving G2 a little bit of momentum as well. Who at least breaks phases. Again, as we have the same opening. Last time it was challenged a little bit by FaZe, but this time they're choosing not to. Backing away from the fight.
What are G2 going to try and find as their first point of lead in? They had, obviously, the Ying as the pacey execute before from Alamau, and to be fair, it's a very good tool in G2's arsenal. They can be so decisive with Candelas, with pace, with that aggression, so much so that it's been banned against them from time to time. Here, instead, almost the opposite. And I'm thinking they thought Dirt was maybe something they could put the pressure on potentially. It's usually where you'll see a Monty try and drive down on the back end and just force the rear side of the hole to be a bit uncomfortable. We think where the two last players were on the side of FaZe, and you had one just off to the A case on the left, and you had one buried towards the default plant spot. The Monty maybe putting some pressure down from either that side or somewhere else could be a force.
Cameras are going to be very helpful. First set of Excaros taken care of. Second set of Excaros taken care of. Now, no more impacts on set player. Oh, actually not taken care of. All right.
Just hit the wrong end there. I mean, you're playing with an upside down camera doing maths. I can understand a little bit of a lack of cool there, but the hatch is always going to get opened.
Yeah. Oh, one actually.
Oh, one. Okay, they did. Okay. A technical success because it stopped the hatch being broken up, and you know you still cost them an extra.
Semi-taken care of.
Semi-taken care of. Did the job. Good enough. But I mean, it's always going to get open. The thing is, the reason it's just a battle of attrition. You trade and take as much out as possible. But you can also keep impacts for Selma breaks against this. Obviously, you can't really do it against all the holds, but look, they're ready to make sure that this can't turn into it. You do it low, and then the Kiba barricade could replace it if they want to.
Now, the thing is, if they want to go for a full opening now, so they need to get a grenade through first, because if they do it now, a grenade, ooh, but they don't have anything anymore. So that's just all they have now.
Oh, the Kiba barricade just comes in time to stop the lag, and as pointed out, they're out, so they've just got to try and drive the site. Cyber popped behind the AK, he's able to get one on the end. They have to stop. You're looking at 21 seconds. The shield, it wants to try and break its way through. No more smoke canisters to stop it. They clear close right. There's nobody there. They don't have a way through. Close left. So they just got to try and deep dive the shield. They're a bit isolated with Blur over the shoulder of the cover. Souls pops up. Alamo pops down. And there's Astro with the fight. It's just Blur left standing with 3 players to try and cut through. Nothing else in the canisters. It is 6-4.
Map point. 1 now for FaZe. Still no real stress coming through. Only G2 managed to win that 1 round we had on CCTV. And to be honest, that's a side that any team on attack should be able to win if you're at the Six Invitational.
Yep.
And they won it due to the fact that FaZe was a bit slow on their setup. G2 read it, they instantly took advantage of it, and they were able to take a win out of it. So again, there's nothing really that they should be worried about on FaZe's side for these next 2 rounds. Or at least there's nothing I am worried about. I'm fully convinced FaZe is going to be taking it in these next 2. Because the G2 attacks, whilst they found some success, they found some entries here and there, but it hasn't been stunning on Clubhouse. It hasn't been crippling FaZe whatsoever.
No, it's entirely right. You're looking at them failing on the execute. The most important part of your hold is that's truly what gets tested, and they haven't been able to really put the pressure. There's never really been a moment where you're like, the kid's going down.
Yeah.
Or the kid is close to going down. They've never had that throughout this attacking half so far, and even in the round that they won, it was brute force, smash and grab around, which doesn't really work as well on this side.
Which is what they have been, if you think about it, trying for the majority of their attacks. Like the Yinks come in, they just rush for it. The structural work is not really there. And it worked out on that 1 round because they weren't quite ready. Is it going to work now? That's a different question that we'll see answered soon. As a quick opening into the construction will be made. It's just going to be providing some extra lines aside. And this is a massive change on the bedroom approach that we didn't see from FaZe. The opening that will be there on CCTV. Now that's going to be making sure that the player that will potentially be wanting to challenge the highway is not going to be feeling as safe to do so. And that means that, you know, when you start putting pressure back towards that...
Here we go. Doki gets caught out first, immediately by Souls on the back end. Dropped and watched. Benja does get Souls in response. The Candela has come through, but so does Blur and Virtue. Virtue gets knocked back, though. The pair of them, they're trying to fight their way through onto the breach. Astro's doing everything to hold on. Gets caught out by the blind. They're driving in, and Alamo tears the head off of the back end is Cyber. There's a pause in a moment. Benja, he's holding the rotate, making sure nobody can get too close. They're hopped up. Bullet's got himself towards the construction door, and if they try and slink through Gym, they'll probably get caught. They want to hit that reinforced wall, the one in the middle of Gym, so they can buy themselves a second, and Benja bounces it round onto Vida. They're droning, they're pulling, and there is G2 fighting.
Good, really call, good call, Byron. Good shit, Carl. That's his name. I forgot his name.
Listen, you play for Fabian's love. You know this. You know this when you're in the team.
Tactical break coming through. There is some time, of course, to discuss now. They still have it. Why not using it?
Yeah, let's have a listen.
Ataque baixo, vamos fazer full bomb se os caras estiverem fazendo lurking, tá bom? Sim, vamos botar em ritmo de jogo dos caras. Ataque dinheiro, foi bom. Só que vamos ter cuidado com essa kill ali na Switch, tá bom? Porque o cara vamos jogar mais junto na Switch. E se for ataque academia, do Montanha também deu bom, acho que a gente pode repetir, tá bom? Tá bom. Defesa de overtime, baixo, tá bom, galera? Sem mistério. Souls, pega Jagger em vez de Valkyrie, tá bom? Pra ter mais gadgets, mais recursos, porque eles estão só atacando o Wing e não estão tacando flash pra tirar o DSDA. Isso. Bora, galera. Bora.
Bora stage.
Bora, bate aí pra cima, cara. Bora.
There's definitely some worries. I mean, some last notes being given there on how to approach this last defense potentially for them.
I mean, you want to lock it out, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. You don't want this to go to OT and suddenly make it that even dogfight.
Because you're onto Villa next. You're onto G2's map. You're onto... You know, it's a place that they're very happy to, I think, sort of stretch themselves. They have a good bit of growth there. And Villa's not the most common battleground for teams as well. Some teams really have a preference away from it.
Yeah, for sure. But we're talking about brute forces. I think that last round was a beautiful example of that. Lost the first frag, then they just tossed in all the Candela's grenades and they just went for it. And again, successful because this time the gunfights did go their way. And they're going to be re-attempting them. Either way, we are headed towards bar stage. A top floor hold is often known here for defense. Verticality is kind of the name of the game because you can take down most of the safe planting positions from up above, which doesn't really make them that safe if you think about it. And that means that the attack is going to try and take control of that area as well. Try and find at least construction if you want to be going for a stage plant, or you could be taking the bedroom if you want to go for a bar plant. So depending on what your approach is going to be, you'll take a certain amount of that top floor under your own wing.
Bullet in a partially aggressive position there. Maybe waiting to see if somebody decides to try and befriend them, but it's Benja blinding their way through on the fight on the back end of the cover of the Candelas. Doesn't fully check it.
Oh no.
King tucked onto the corner. We heard the hatch break above them. You hope that they double check it. They do. And then they get the kill behind it. That could have been as deadly as Benja almost was in the previous round. They deal with the problem quite early on. And they get rid of one of the big stops towards a lot of plant attempts here. You're looking at Candelas and smokes in the pocket of Alamau. You're looking at stage and the pressure they're putting above the hatch. You're getting ideas of what they might be wanting to do.
FaZe actually decided to go for a more horizontal approach for this hold. Only a single player up on that top floor, quickly dispatched as well. That's really why they reinforced off that hatch, just to make sure that, you know, the attackers will have to use some of that utility to open it up. Probably will save either two Selmas or an extra thermic for that job. Rotation's already happening in the meantime. You see Blur, Doki rotating around. The opening will be made by Virtue just so the hatch is opened up. That will provide them some cover if they do want to go for a stage plan. The next thing, though, is going to be Yokais and the horizontal angles you need to deal with. Souls going quite aggressive against Doki right here, but not able to connect.
The pressure on towards Stock on the back end, just catches one, can't catch the next. Astro, a very important trade back as the blinds come on the back end. Benja, the rotate all the way around to Kitchen. He's going to try and draw some attention away from the fight and force them to pay some towards him instead. You can see Cyber is rotating because of it. The grenades, they're trying to use them to open up the castle door and make sure this fight turns into a fast one. The pre-fire on the angle. Astro suffers in the meantime. Bullet, he's still back on the billiards table, holding pretty for now, 30 seconds. You assume the pressure's going to start coming more in towards his back end. The blinds, once again, but nothing on the back of it. Still trying to fish and find one entrance body, but it's Blur that gets caught off and the kit gets out of hand. Alamau, he's going to see if he can try and lead in behind the back of this. That one will roll deeper and deeper around on the corner. There's a pre-fire and a swing, but 15 seconds and one more falling. Cyber has the corridor unlocked. The pre-fire onto Virtue, can't quite get the end, and they pop right back round. And we have a Clubhouse that is covered in FaZe flags.
For a second there, it looked like G2 might have been able to lock off at least an overtime to go their way. The horizontal hold just a little bit too strong. Not the movements required behind those Candelas to actually make something happen. Maybe a bit of fear, maybe a bit too focused on getting that diffuser down. Not thinking about what others could be taking you down. But without further ado, let's head to a quick break before we're back with map number 2.
I'm Nicholas Mortensen, but you know me as Pingu. I'm a 2-time Rainbow Six Siege World Champion and former top Rainbow Six Siege player in Pro League. Welcome to my Siege Ranked Bootcamp. We're talking 20 seconds left on the clock, you got the diffuser in hand, what do you do? Play the way that you're comfortable with, because you have confidence when you're in this position, that is when you're gonna be at your very best. Good luck.
Hello, hello, and welcome back here. We have just seen FaZe take the first map, and not to put too much pressure into the wind this early.
Yes.
G2 are 1 map away from going home.
So you weren't going to be adding any pressure to them.
No, well, they can't hear me.
Oh, that's very true. Let's see if Fabian actually has learned what Alamau's name is. Oh.
You learned Doki's at least.
No, it's the referee that is being telling Doki to sit down. Either way, we are soon to be headed into the second map, which is going to be Villa. Which teams should I start off with? FaZe or G2?
Go with FaZe.
Okay. Whilst you all look at a beautiful map summary.
Mm-hmm.
FaZe has played this over the last year a total of 15 times, which, you know, is one of their most played maps actually throughout the year. Only Chalet, Clubhouse, and Bank beat that. They have lost it a total of 9. 3 times against Liquid, once against Rogue, etc., etc. They've won it a total of 6 times. But it hasn't really been on like the big international levels where they have been able to win it consistently. They've banned a total of 31 times, which shows you that it isn't really their favorite, even though they do play it quite often. And if we then head over towards G2, well, they've only played it 5 times over the year, but they've won it once against Space Station, once against Koi, and once against Outsiders.
All right. Okay.
Yes?
Yeah. That's good info.
Anything else we want to have on the map?
I suppose if you want 3 maps, you want G2 to win. Because at the end of the day,
heart says yes.
It's not about stats, it's about having a good old time, a good old-fashioned gunfight.
Are you trying to say you're here for a good time, not a
I'm here for a good time and hopefully a long time in a map 3.
What about a good long time, yes.
Good long time? I mean, that's the perfect time.
That's the perfect,
isn't it? There's no better time than a good long time.
I agree. All right, let's see how often Villa has been played so far over the Six Invitational. As the bench comes through, it seems like it is a grand total of 6, actually. 51% defensive win rate, so very much on the fence there.
Dokkaebi and Ying, FaZe, same ban. They dislike Dokkaebi, and they're going to make sure that she's not on the board. It's a heck of a heavy-hitting DMR. It's a very good gun in the right hands. The calls are problematic for some of the holes they like to do. We know they like to play Echo. We know they like to play on cams. We know they like to play mobile as well. So it sort of gives them a bit of a game that they can lean into. And then Mirror and Valk, pretty standard. And the Ying, I mean, I pointed it sort of out before as something that G2 use very well. FaZe can use it as well, and they just don't want to play that game.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, like, wow, G2 actually banning out the Ying. How surprising. But it's like, you know, they probably have enough faith that they can attack on this map without it. I just don't want to be giving it to FaZe to use against them. It's FaZe that starts off on the defense here, and we are headed towards the first floor. First, it is going to be the kitchen and the dining area. It's not the hungriest side of them all, it's on a different map.
No, it's a little bit of the hungriest side.
It is definitely in the list of hungry sites, but not on the hungriest, because there's also a pantry close. But then, yeah, you know, you have the other kind of rooms that don't really have anything to do, like laundry, right next to it.
Yeah, that's not a hungry room at all.
No.
That's like, all right. The Razor Blooms with the M870 shotgun, that can be a bit of a problem if we start to see some of those strict sharp pushes that we saw from G2 on the previous map. The setup there of the, okay, well, let's play against these traps. Let's bring some damage. The Capcans, the Legions, the Razor Blooms. It's to stop the game that G2 were very, very good at, but they just couldn't quite find the end of it on the map that wasn't theirs. Here, where FaZe, I think, are a little bit more uncomfortable, they'll probably be trying to limit not so much, or focus more on what they do well rather than thinking that you can do better than them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Thanks. E1D goes off. E1D goes off. You're on the hunt at this for the far end. You're seeing if you can try and clear across Art and Piano, get yourself in. If the hatch is open, you want to keep an eye up towards it. If it's closed, you can move through a couple of pre-fired pellets, but the reveal of the players at the top of the stairs mean they still have to go with an unfortunately wide clear.
Yeah, they still will have to clear out the full top floor. It's not just going to be one player. It's also Souls that is on the top of the main stairs. Next, the E1D goes off. Souls instantly moves in afterwards to take control of Study, hoping to go for a bit of a fight and a rotate around. Spots the first player, takes him down cleanly. No worries for him. It's going to be the entry kill for FaZe. It's going to be the line off the board as well. Alamau now focusing purely on Colin. As Cyber takes down Doki as well. Not a good start for G2.
Yeah, that was off the sort of mark there for FaZe. They swung in with the first engagements. And G2, their approach here was, as I said, a bit spread out. They were trying to find some width. They were trying to force the FaZe players who were happy to not move. They took out as many drones as they did. They did so much damage. We've only got 2 left. And that's a huge cost of everything that's come forward. If you think, well, what's really been taken here by G2? They've died putting pressure not really directly onto the site at this point.
I mean, even now they're not really on the side. Yes, they're opening up some of these walls, but they're still outside windows. Cyber's just waiting patiently there with the M870 shotgun. Already has 1 kill with the machine pistol that he carries. Benja's going to go on a bit of a hunt because he seems to be aware of the fact that someone's out there. But so is Cyber. Leans into the fight, doesn't quite land it. Benja gets away with the kill and not a single point of damage taken.
I mean, now it's just 1 drone left. 1 drone, 3 players, a grenade, and some chance at stopping people coming behind you. But with Souls on the hunt right behind, do they know? Oh, do they at least have that? Cool. Benja able to get 1 back, but there's still a lot of work left to do. 30 seconds. They're just going to have to try and sort of brute force their way through into the site at this moment in time. They've rotated the diffuser closer around towards but with Bullet watching the hatch, well, that's just 1 more tick against them. Quick hop in. This army barricade means they're going to have an awkward approach towards this. The fight is slender, and it's just time being blown away. And at this point, if they're able to win this out, it would really be FaZe just throwing, and they don't really seem like they're in the mood.
No, they want to be locking this one off with a quick 2-0 against G2 because we mentioned it before, it is going to be a tough day for whichever team comes out on top out of this game, considering they will still have to face Dark Zero afterwards in another knockout game. There's no more second chances for any of these teams that will play today. And FaZe, they win their first with quite a bit of, you know, relaxing fashion, not really any pressure really being put upon them. The most stressful moment probably was Benja finding 2 kills from below in the basement, and there not being any reply until half a minute later. And that is something that FaZe would like to have more of. Just these kind of rounds where they pick up those early entries, they are not really being put under too much pressure, because the more rounds they find on the defense, the better it will be for them when they go over to that second half. Because if it is a map you are not too confident with, or you're not too comfortable on, playing on the defense is always just that little bit easier than on the attack. Because on the attack, you need to be on your feet. You need to be quick in adaptation because you need to reply to whatever the defense has made for you. What kind of a present they have handcrafted for you.
G2, full start. At what point do you sort of try and shake the cobwebs off and move forward into this engagement? FaZe, they've done what they needed to kind of do there. As I said, it's less about limiting in terms of the lockdown that you can put on the site here. They need to lean in to what G2 want to approach. We're still going to see the consistency of traps, the plays against the stretch and the clarity that G2 want to go for on their approach here. The break of the Flores, I think, is good adaptation. It allows you to smash open some of these softs. The keepers have been used fantastically by FaZe throughout this. You always see them just a little bit at arm's reach. It gives you the wiggle room to play against this space, and it means there's a lot of utility cost to get there.
Twitch drone quickly taken down, and to quickly lean back into it. Yeah, because, you know, they are using the double architecture right now with castle and then also the keeper barriers, but whereas you can place those castles earlier on, the keeper barrier is just a quick toss and they're right back up. So it just allows you to recraft these safe protective zones, or at least somewhat safe protective zones. Benja is waiting at the bottom of Astronomy Stairs. He's going to be waiting for a call to be coming through from G2 that it is time to go. There's the jump up from Cybertex.
Oh no! And he might find a third. Souls takes, and you can see a little bit of celebratory crouching there. He has just dunked on the G2 approach. The hop out on the window, getting a double. And That is just a tragedy. One more for Cyber, and what a brutal round to be on the wrong side of.
G2 timeout.
Let's listen in.
Oh, he sounds mad.
I haven't fucking shut it up you once in my entire 6 months here. But what the fuck are we doing? We're timid, we're not talking, we're shouting over each other. Fucking wake up! Is this how we want to go out of the tournament? We've shown everyone here that we were the best team in this tournament in group stages. Fucking do it! You guys got this! Communication and coordination. We're one by one dying everywhere. Time to wake up! Fucking get the energy! Fire in your asses! Get this shit done!
Let's go, boys.
Let's wake up.
Fucking energy! Show it!
Fucking go. They're not even playing. They're not even playing like crazy siege. It's just default. Stop doing stupid shit. Like it's easy to counter. Okay, no problem.
We're just not doing simple.
What?
We're just not doing all simple.
Exactly. We're not doing simple shit. They are.
We're just
But
sat there.
yeah, exactly. Let's be active. Fuck it.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
Do it, do it, do it.
Hasn't shouted in his 6 months here, so this one should be coming home.
Did he shout at his 6 months with us?
He definitely did when I was playing ranked with him.
Oh, yeah.
Our team killed him.
You have irritated Fabian more than his team has irritated him in a professional competitive environment. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I join G2 at this point. I am...
I remember playing with Fabian when he was with us, and I'd not actually had the joy of playing with him before, and I did a really good round of Consulate, and he goes, oh, Fleek, you're maybe the best of all of them, and then I entirely messed it up the next round. He goes, I spoke too soon. So,
yeah.
No, but he's entirely right. That round was abysmal. For where they were throughout this tournament, to falling to plays like that is just beyond words. Cyber, he's looking to try and punish it, and he might be able to find it. Do they have an awareness? They do. He takes a bit of a scrap and a scrape, but he's able to escape and get out of there before he's entirely punished. They're still watching some of it, but otherwise, not for now.
Drones coming through. From Art into Piano, they have spotted out that one player out there that is still roaming. Now they need to hunt him down. This Cyber, a player with a lot of accolades behind his name. A true menace to go up against. He will not take it easy on you. E1D pops, G2 not really moving right behind it. There is Benja up on the top though. He has taken Trophy and Stature under control, but it's not the site. But at least that's this part of the map cleared out. It gives them a staging area to try and launch an attack from, or at least something similar to that. There he goes, first kill comes through. Elamau finds Cyber, but an instant trade will be coming down on Doki. Side of the map.
There's a bit of pressure now coming against Souls. He's going to tuck himself in, get close towards the site. They have some barricades, some reinforcements. You can sort of play this space a bit longer, especially with the Keeper barricade that has been placed in a little bit more time. Doki is dropped. Bullet had the bait. And well, another little bit of a disaster there. Elamau caught out. They've suddenly lost the man advantage.
It's not looking good for G2 as they continue on their attack here. Ben just trying to, hunt for the scraps that might have been left behind, but the remaining FaZe members did go back towards the site. Breaching round will be used to get rid of any utility on the other side. The Keeper barrier actually will stay up. It's just a vertical angle that will be used. Afraid someone might be in studies trying to hold that door to see if they come back after the explosion that just happened. He's going to be creating another angle like that to see if he can protect the other side of the door, which Virtue seems to be coming from. And Astro, just from the top of main, he has a good angle. He can stop this plant from happening, which means that the rest of G2, or Benja rather, needs to be providing support and take down Astro.
The break coming through onto just an angle, not for a rotate. Don't give them an option, but make the gun cabinet uncomfortable to be inside. You can see there's still pressure over the top of the stairs, and the frost mat right underneath it just swings in and gets torn up, leaving Virtue alone. And another disaster of an approach here for G2, torn up by the holds, the swings. A double kill was the start. And FaZe are fired up.
Not just fired up, the mood is there, the smiles, and just the laughter, all present. And they're relaxed because they're currently leading 3-0 in a map that is 50%-ish towards the defense. And Alamau is quiet. Well, he's talking, but everything is just gone. Baiting the site. Doki's volunteering himself. Let's see what that will be building into. Another set of frost mats have been put down, and that's just a lack of droning that we saw from G2 there in the end. I mean, that frost mat Benja jumped in from, we saw it earlier on. He didn't check it, he didn't bother checking it. And that might either be because they didn't know there was a frost on the board, or they thought that window was cleared out. I'm not quite sure.
I mean, I called it early on. It's that game plan that they're playing against here. The irritants of traps, the irritants of trickery, and adding one extra thing that G2 needs to check on these breaks is really just derailing them. It's pulling their focus away from what they wanted to do. Those little scrappy moments, things like this.
I mean, why not, right? Because
why not at this point? It's just throwing them off.
No one was caught by it, but you know, it's still something like, all right, like they're feeling discomforted. They're going for these runouts now. You need to try and stem that quickly. And if you look at G2 in these 3 rounds, they've only had 3 kills. Which isn't a lot. I don't think I have to tell you.
No, I don't think you need to. Yeah, it's... The only really word for the start of this for G2 is tragic. And the tac timeout has been used. From this point onwards, the only player ahead of them is in the pockets of the players themselves. Back down on Kitchen, Doki just misses the tail end of the first fight. Somebody swinging around behind him. The E1D is close. He has an idea. The player slips away just at the end. They're concerned about the watch, the pre-fire, and the angles. There's the opener either side. Astro back and forth. And, well, it's Doki that at least wins it out. Blur almost gets picked up immediately after, but Alamau is able to find Cyber, and they have some cover. Finally, G2 have a lead in, but it wouldn't be the first that has dripped away from them as the round continues. Souls inside the vault. They seem to have some awareness. They're jiggling into the fight. They're able to do some damage to Bullet in the meantime. Benja gets one. There's Alamau finally activating alongside the rest of the players finally activating. And now at this, they just need to either find the diffuser on the site or the final kill.
Let's come back this shit. Let's go. Good job, boys.
You heard the screaming Fabian there just saying, like, let's go. This is what we need. This is the kind of energy they need as well. Just working together, finding these kills. Let's get the confidence back in. Virtue joking around a little bit. Saying he's just better. Now, head back towards trophy. Because believe it or not, that was a dining attack.
It was.
We were literally as far away from the side as possible.
Yeah, most of that happened on the opposite side, on the opposite side of the map. A little bit of a distance away. But, you know, it's the start. It was the technical first side. For a lot of teams, it does rotate its way around as the third. They've got to see if they can try and do it on more traditional first and second picks, I would say, from their region, which is here. Is that sort of middleest child trophy, the split site, and, you know, they were sort of apart here on the motions. They need to try and swing behind the momentum. They won multiple gunfights in multiple different places. They've suddenly doubled their total kill count. Almost triple over one round.
Definitely a good round coming in from G2 there. But it was a lot of gunfights happening on opposite side of the map. We're still like some 50-50s. At least from what we've seen, it wasn't like up until that last kill, not really people doubling up onto a single person. So even though everything went their way this time, you cannot really keep on relying on that. So they need to be making sure that they are working together for the remainder of this game, are double swinging these players, or at least firing on the back of information. Of course, I didn't see every kill, but the ones we saw were mostly just single people peeking and single people going after others. Moving through. Quick drone from Virtue is going to be giving away some information. Benji down below is going to be using a grenade, see if he can dispatch of the very first FaZe member. Souls is the target. Souls will be found as well right after he tosses the Kiba barrier up. But that's at least going to be the entry kill, and that's going to be a lot of Kiba barriers out of play now.
Timed with the E1D2. It was step for step perfect there, and G2 starting to have a bit of a turn of face.
Oh,
Look
no
at
way.
that. Look at that. Doesn't get the full bite. It is a dock, so they're going to get themselves stimmed back up instantly. But it was almost the second follow-up from the same little bit of ground, a slight difference of a foot. And they at least get to keep two of them still running about and causing problems. And, well, thankfully it happened to the dock as well if you're a FaZe fan, because Cyber can get themselves picked back up to help the pressure. The back end, the Solarium stairs, they're putting their eyes towards the site via the telescope across the board, but Cyber is watching right back. However, will the pressure come? There it is. Fantastic take from the calls and the intel. Someone else steps in and someone else gets knocked right back out. Virtue, he's inside the site, at least gets some revenge, but with Vidiking getting one on the back end, there's another huge take from Virtue. Driving across, he's able to find his third! And the Aussie goes huge!
He said it in the previous round as a bit of a joking manner. I'm just better. And then he actually became just better.
And then he proves it.
Just what they needed, because it was slightly falling apart. Cyber taking down two players on the actual astronomy staircase just as they moved up. And then Virtue on the Ash just walks in and decides to drop his 4 kills off the game in 1 round.
I mean, Virtue, he hasn't really had the biggest tournament from the team, and he's not really needed to at points, obviously, but he's always been a superstar player. He was one of the original sort of superstar potential lineups here. He's had games where it's sort of shown. He's had these moments of rhythm, and those big hits are ones just like that. And if it needs to come on potentially the last map to be the reason you can keep getting another potential map, I mean, welcome. Welcome.
In that matter, it's never too late, right? Because if it keeps you alive, then that's all you need. Just to make sure that you can continue onwards. But still, you're a round behind, and still, FaZe have been able to pick up 3 rounds, so the half so far hasn't really been going your way. At least the tactical timeout has knocked some sense into the G2 members, and they're up. Aggressive, a jump out from Cyber. The window's prepped, though. He took a lot of damage, he didn't deal any. It's a big risk to take, but he gets away with his life.
Astra building himself a little fortification corner. They have the swing angle from behind to offer him some support. It's just a sort of step forward, but a well-placed grenade here, and that could be the end of Astro. Something played pretty well before. Cyber, as we said, with the jump out, him not getting killed is a blow. But him not getting a kill compared to how he was in the opening couple of rounds is probably a bit of a boon. But look at him now. Remember what he did in this exact location. The double kill, the bait on the first down. They're not falling for it. The drone rolls around, pushes it, and this should be able to get rid of
all 3.
All 3. Blur is able to take care of Astro's house. How? One of them survives and the one on the window. But still, it's a lot of Kiba barricades gone for just wasting time on a room.
Yeah, it is, and you know, he also didn't place it up, so there was always one that survived as Benja gets the first. He's going aggressive as Cyber responds. Alamau and Benja both pushing through. A player with the staircase gets knocked out, and suddenly it's only up to Bullet now. An explosion onto the side of G2.
Where was this G2? And why have they shown up? You might be thinking if you're FaZe here. Bullet, he's doing everything to try and hold on. Blur, he's going to see if he can get the kit down. Bullet at least bites one more back. And now with the grenades rolling and well, the first plant in, the whole series. We'll see if G2 can get to the end of it. A 3 versus 1. They have some utility, a couple of Roteros, some flashes, and everything they need, and they're not giving Bullet anything. A good gun, a good bit of movement, a jiggle onto the door, but the swing from wide, and an even half. G2. They've woken up.
You shot nothing.
Let's fucking go. Like a Virtue's like, good shit call. You shot nothing. Either way. Good rounds coming in from G2 in the end there. 3 in a row. That's what they needed. That's the momentum they need to build if they want to be surviving this. And headed towards a map number 3, which will be Theme Park.
Attackers need to locate and defuse.
And as we get back in, it is the side swap coming through. And we are starting off where we left off, which is going to be Aviator, with G2's first defense now.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Quickly check in, nothing too odd out of the G2 lineup. Mute Moz is going to be making it somewhat difficult to get these drones into places where they need to be. Might actually catch some off as well to allow G2 to get some of these drones in pre-placed spots for attackers, or maybe, you know, drone out some of your defending buddies to go for an entry kill. Either way, as they set themselves up, Keeper barriers are being prepared as well, just to block off some of these long lines aside as Doki rotates all the way around to the opposite side of the map. He's going to be barricading off his own doors just to provide himself some extra security, just to slow down a potential FaZe approach from this side of the map. And just to make sure that they would know based on sound.
Okay, G2, can the energy continue? And at what point do FaZe have the conversation before we might find ourselves hurtling towards map 3? There's no two ways, they've woken up. But it's a game of two halves, it's a game of two sides, and it's often said this is a tricky one to attack. The trade out is the lead-in, Cyber's gone. Ooh. There is one more as well for the trouble. I was going to say they survived. The grenade just slipped on before the barricade could pop up, but Benja finds Vidiking, and it's a consistent response here from the guns of G2. They're making sure that there is at least a bit of destruction done elsewhere. Astro on the hunt, but they've already slipped away and peeled themselves to a position further off. They've lost the buck. They've lost some of the pressure from underneath. If there was, you know, hard breach charges, they are gone as well. From the pockets at this point, it's just guns and trying to drive them in. But to be honest, if you just wanted two people for their guns, there's two that you like. And with the diffuser rush failed inside the site, FaZe have a lot of working to do.
They sure do. And there's still some Keeper barriers up. They're going to be making it difficult for them to move through. Now, luckily, there's still two breaching charges left on Bullet. So I think he's going to be using the first one on that ruse table to get rid of the Keeper barrier out there that's blocking such a long sight. They have it, just as I said. It's going to be allowing him to actually look through the door towards Study and potentially find himself in a gunfight with Benja, who has been quite successful throughout this round so far with that P10 Roni. So it is a fight you need to be very confident in taking. Rotate around comes from Ash, I believe. So they might be trying to go for some Study pressure as well.
I mean, they have to add a second line. You cannot just charge your way in via the two doors. At least if you're doing the fight against Study or the pinch on the opposite end, you have a little bit of external wiggle room that you can play with. Even underneath, you could try and draw some attention. You have one more sort of ranged soft breach charge. They want to swing into this fight without the call and without the long time. They do it under the cover of the audio, and there's a fight for Benja. Gets the second! And that was some of the play we had on club. But this time it ends with a successful round, and G2, from being 0-3 down, now have 4 tied in a row.
Try and maybe bait the other strat in the prep phase so they don't take Thatcher. Can we try and do something like that, like open up triple and then reinforce it at the start of the round? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs.
I'll prevent them from bringing Thatcher, so they're going to be baiting something to not give them any ID.
Yeah, so
Kate is there.
They were talking about maybe opening up the wall a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Which means that, you know, you don't feel like you've got to get that so strict. You know, they're not even playing into Thatcher at the minute at the start. They've swapped into Flores, which, if unwatched, could also do a similar sort of job. There's a mute to stop this approach. But, hey, you never really know, you know? We have omnipotence. We can see all and know all, and we can sort of say, well, it was a good idea. You only really know, well, they might like to do this, and we're going to do this instead. Now it's locked,
and that's
we're going to get some reinforcements.
Yeah, so indeed, it's because of Virtue playing on that Cade. Want to make sure that they can actually keep this wall closed, and that means grenades need to be coming through.
Do the wall first.
Yeah, do the wall first. More important.
Do the wall first, Virtue. Now you can play the claws. The thing is, because they're going low with it, you know, it's going to be easier for the Flores drone to potentially get, or potentially get got from underneath.
Yeah.
than up high, but up high means it's more likely to be swung from the opposite end. So it's the trade-off. Again, you're piecing things together based on assumed knowledge and knowledge, assuming they follow it.
He also has 2 of them, right? So to get the first, there's still always the opportunity to instantly go back.
Oh. Quick bit of grenade pressure.
Pull back the pocket though.
Not yet, not yet.
Not going to be throwing that one in as a Hail Mary yet, as the first RC Retiro, or actually second, already comes through. He shots out. He's not going to be able to find any piece of utility, and that means that Bulla is still left with only 2 RCs as the Gemini Replicator gets taken out. It seems like some pressure from the bathroom is coming up very soon from the side of FaZe.
Yeah, Alamau, he's just sort of locked in. Obviously, as the smoke canisters can slip and rotate his way away, the shield up on the bed will get caught out. There's the preparation of they're going to try and grenade you, pull back. They're definitely going to grenade the shield. The C4 goes back, hoping that somebody moved in behind it. Didn't quite get the width that they wanted, but the smoke canister on the window stopped them in the lead-in and the follow-through. Cyber, they're pushing onto the wall. They're going to go for the break, and that's why they open it up. The grenade will just bounce over the top. There's nothing to catch this, but Bullet does catch Virtue. Gone. That rolls too far. The way the claw is tucked, they're thinking it might be up high. Oh, the second just has that connection, and the wall will get opened.
And if you only had Virtue left alive now, would have been able to go for a bit of a trick. Not the case. Benja tries to reply. Doki goes down in the meantime, though. FaZe are literally knocking on the front doors here off this side. Alamau is being rushed on from multiple different sides. Flashbangs coming through. He's forced to fall back. He's no longer able to provide support to the rest of his teammates as Benja gets shut down right after he makes the kill happen.
Flooded from just too many sides, and now the pre-fire through the wall. They had the ping from the E1D and FaZe. Find a round, the first in a while, but it does level us back up.
Very one-dimensional push coming out from FaZe there, just using the walk-in closet, using the bathroom and the astronomy window. Nothing else was taken. They didn't send anybody in from below to get grenades through. They were thinking about it, but they decided against it. They sent in their RC Retiros, but they weren't quite able to provide, you know, the amount of damage they needed onto the astronomy stairs to push up later there. So at that point, all you can really do is just go in from a horizontal perspective because, you know, those strongholds still up and running for G2.
Living room library. And, well, you know it's a specific hold, and you know you've got a couple of big gunners on your team when Doki is on the roll of the Malusi. Dropped off a lot in the hands of favored gunners due to speed changes, where she's not quite as fun to swing around the map and get into engagements. However, sometimes you got to do what's best for the team.
10 seconds remaining.
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes if you're not feeling the role completely, it is time to hand it over to someone who is a little bit more into that game, or actually needs to be in a different kind of position. Either way. It is going to be that living room, and it's a sight we do not often see. If I'm correct, it only has been played like a total of 2 times throughout the Six Invitational, yes. It has been won twice by the defense, which means that if teams know what they're doing here, they are able to find success. There's a reason why it doesn't get played often. It's because a lot of teams do not feel comfortable playing here.
Let's see if it can be something where FaZe are comfortable taking the attack. They start with the intel gather, they start with the push on the opposite end. We've seen them go for attempts at quick strikes. We've seen them try and break through the whole hold itself and just force a fight. An early smoke canister and the response of the E1D just to sort of make the statement that we're arriving and we're watching. And with the hold onto the stairs, I mean, are they trying to bait some attention here towards Study? You can see that Astro's watching the double door underneath as well. They have the entire rotation of this player locked in. They have 3 players watching Virtue's hold. There is nowhere for the smoke to go, but otherwise through a gunfight.
E1D comes through, C4 gets blown, a lot of damage done to Bullet, but not quite the confirm they were looking for. As the first to Alamau will find Cyber. Virtue thinking about falling back a little bit, but also aware of the fact that a push comes down from the main door. And only up to Souls now. Could this be flawless? No, it's not. Just delayed Benja with the C4, but still the round win.
Bro, I thought the bench guy dropped on you. He was still there.
Something to Cyber. I like how he covers his microphone, so he's shouting in his teammates' ears.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you have to look at the timing of the kills there and the motions that G2 were making. As I said, FaZe was sort of setting themselves up. They'd surrounded for the pinch on the back end. They had what they believed was everything in place to force that player out. However, the G2 players started making moves of their own. There was the couple of C4s that came in from underneath. The first didn't get the full lockdown. The second did at the end there. We saw G2 respond to what was otherwise happening. And that is an energy that they've sort of been needing. It was an energy that only really, on the first map, we got big taste of Benja having. Alamau had a good time in his attack last time round. We need that growth from them. We need them to bring the fight back. 5-4. We go back to AVG. We go back to a chance at them pulling themselves to map point.
Now, this one was a rush failed by FaZe. They quickly went through study, opened up into what is Aviator, and tried to go for a quick push. Then the diffuser could drop before it even properly reached the side. The plant never really got attempted there, and G2 managed to get away with that instant round victory on the defense. FaZe this time is going to go for a bit of a different approach, at least it looks like, as the diffuser is in the opposite side of the map, which means they're going to be clearing out the master bedroom, they're going to be clearing out trophy and stat tree, and then go for potentially what is a horizontal approach, see if they can open up the vault, send in some pressure from there, and then try and get the plan down right behind the vault door, potentially, if that leans in for their current approach. The thing is that Doki is sneaking about.
Yeah, and he's sneaking about with a bit of soft, and obviously he's got the hop over rotate, but as I sort of talked about before, well, FaZe are very good at cutting off routes out, and there it is. Just blind sprinted through there, and it's not that FaZe have ever played those sort of strict strikes. They've always got a player nearby. If you see a FaZe drone, expect a FaZe engagement within 20 seconds at the worst, within 5 at the average.
It's just a very cheap entry kill here for the side of FaZe. Just the expense of a single drone that has been taken care of, so they'll be more than happy with that. Alamau now stopping those drones from coming through further. RC Retero is going to be taking care of the Kiba barrier, which with Doki's early demise are not going to be replaced. Could be problematic later down in the round.
Flashes over the top. An early C4 ready for a rotate that might come through. Popped and blown, though. So removed quite early. There's a bit of a break onto the site walls itself. The vault gets opened up. You can see Blur is hoping to hit the long-range firefight with the DMR, and they're not being offered anything. Astro, he's taking his time on the approach. It's Souls that gets caught by Benja underneath. There is a second fight, but he's not going to opt for it. Instead, Blur is able to win his, as I talked about, on the top floor. Suddenly, G2, once again, they've lent in, they've bit back. I said Benja was the man who did it a lot by himself before, and now he's got a support structure. FaZe, they're still concerned of the rotates. They're still concerned of the pressure that can come around from underneath. Suddenly they've lost some of their control, but at this point, it's just eyes onto the site and the burn through the gates.
Still fell apart really quickly here for FaZe. As Benja does get taken down, they grab a little bit of consistency again, allow them to stay in this. It's going to be a friendly drone watching there, quickly pinging it just to make sure. Some smoke canisters being tossed in to slow them down. Truly, Bullet was thinking about getting a grenade through, but instead tried to go for the fight. 10 seconds. They need to go in now. They need to try and get that plan to happen. Virtue is rotating through, but gets taken down. I believe that is from the balcony. The cover needs to be on point right now as the plant is going down. 45 seconds on the clock. And it is FaZe that bring it to 5-5.
Huge there from Cyber. Drove himself through. A very important couple of kills. We saw the pings on Benja to get the down on the back end. They weren't able to get the rotate and the player back up. It turned into the 2 versus 1 FaZe. I mean, they took the round, but only just. They know it. They know they are only 2 rounds away from keeping themselves going along the lower bracket. They also know that if they win this, they still have a game in hand. They want to lock this up here.
Yeah, they need to lock this off in a 2-0 fashion to ensure themselves the best possible successes later on against potential Dark Zero. Discussion here about what's going wrong, I assume, and what they need to improve on. I don't know. I don't speak the language. But that's what I assume is what they're talking about. And that's Aviator that just fell. FaZe took that early control, took down Doki, then Ben just struck back and managed to bring the advantage back to G2. But they were unable to really utilize that G2. Like the trade stopped happening, and with a player that is on the balcony able to look through by the angles you created yourself earlier to stop anybody from rotating through, like we saw from Virtue, who wanted to go for a quick rotate around so he could stop the plant from happening. Which meant that you then needed to take that fight, and then you needed to find the cover before you could actually start approaching that planter. And that's a small oversight we saw from G2. Now, they're rerunning the side. We're back to Aviator games. And I think the main change here is to not lose your player this early on. Which was, of course, Doki with the Kiba barricades as well.
5 seconds to go.
It's a massive amount of utility that he carries.
It's also
him on the suicide mission.
Yeah, but it's a silly way to go down as well. He just assumed he wasn't being watched. He assumed that there wasn't. And as we talked about, it's something they've done so well. Alamau on the Solus, on the hunt for that drone game, on the hunt for anyone that might try and take him. It is an exploration of the space. It's a risk because you're so far away from the site. You couldn't be further from the site right now. However, if you can get in on the back end, if you can try and break through some of this awareness and approach.
He's aware of what's being droned. He's just following it with Solus. Of course, there is no indication on the drone that you are actually being spotted, like you would have, for example, with a Vigil that has anything activated. I see Rotero used there to get rid of the Surya Laser Gate, just so they can send some others through. And Alamau gives away his position right here, but either this is to get himself hunted, or this is just him trying to take down that drone and failing.
Well, it instantly follows up with the E1D. There's some pings on the player, and Benja's trying to offer some support as well. He stepped slightly into the same location. Look at Cyber, though. He's down, watching and waiting for Alamau, and the fight is one that was picked apart pretty quickly. You gave FaZe a sniff of a player, and they're not a team that goes slow. If they have an idea of an engagement that they can take, they're going to want to take it. And they don't try and act cautiously around it. They don't try and go slow in.
Benja's gone unspotted there in the laundry. Quickly hid himself whilst they were too busy trying to find Alamau. He's going to go on the hunt now. Slowly but steadily, he's moving himself closer and closer towards Bullet. The Nuck, who can now freely use, of course, the Hell Scanner, considering that Solus is off the board. Doki takes a bit of damage. Grenades are coming through, but won't find any confirmation as Benja takes down Souls with a C4. But he forgot about Bullet. That might be down below him.
That's it. He'll get the call that someone's grenading from underneath. He's not entirely sure what side. They're sort of back-to-back a little bit. And there's the swing round. There's the Nuck caught out. Benja. Even he wasn't truly aware of that fight, but you know he's someone who's more than happy to lean in. Vidaking, he's going to just go past the window. I thought he would have drived clear, unfortunately. For Benja, he's a little bit too short. Just saw the right end of it. So Cyber, he's got 28 seconds. It's the 4 versus 3. They pulled this back last time. Now it's even worse. Vidaking locked on the door, and Benja for the last. G2, 1 round away from taking map 2, their map. The last one ended in a 7-5 in favor of FaZe. This one can end in the favor of G2, but 1 round separates FaZe from bringing it to OT.
Huge round from Benja there, though. Like, as soon as Alamau made his position to be known, he snuck himself into laundry because he was like, okay, they're going to be hunting him down now. They probably won't expect a second player to just be hiding in the spot like this. And indeed, they didn't expect it. And that's why he was able to find that success. First, that C4 kill, and then just stay around there. Try and get himself hunted. Mentioned it before. We're not headed towards living, even though a win was found there by G2. We are headed towards the kitchen and dining room. So all 4 sides will be played by G2. Whether or not all sides will be won it's going to be a different question. No, actually, it won't happen because Trophy already lost.
Yeah,
I rerun it after.
We can't answer that one.
We cannot answer that one. So unless we do go to overtime.
Well, no, we still can. We can answer it by saying no. Not all sites will be won.
I mean,
if your question,
they can still be won if they lose this and then win overtime and have defense twice and all kinds of difficult scenario.
You're a difficult scenario.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day. The first fight will be a very important one at the point, and obviously the entry statistic did go away, but Benja has just been the problem child for FaZe Clan throughout this game. The E1D consistent play, an attempt to try and control the movements here of G2 on this map. It's something that he's able to play around and against, but they've doubled it up with Jackal. They've sort of gone in on the idea of let's find these loose players, because too many times they've slipped by. Too many times we've not taken them by surprise. We've sort of gone in guns blazing and locked them out. We can do the same fight. Cyber goes down. The first victim to fall, Virtue. I don't know if he knows. He's cautious about giving himself away, because look at this. There's somebody on the washroom. There's somebody on the prep door. Blur pops around, gets Cyber. And that's why Virtue didn't move, to make sure they didn't hand the site over. Virtue suffers, but he's able to win out against Souls as well. Astro, he's trying to make things happen here on the pantry stairs, and the lead-in he's swung into. Alamau against Vidaking in the meantime. G2 weren't happy to sit around and wait, and they might have had everything to try and find the loose players, but apparently not enough for the ones on the building and the structure itself. Bullet pulls back, finds the end of Benja. Alamau's still holding on to the opposite side, but he's not giving his head away. The first body to take is theirs. They're trying to fight their way through into China. There's the width of the Oryx, and it's dangerous here from G2 to keep offering little glimpses of engagements. There's one more for Blur. He shows up when you need him on the back end, and Bullet, an ace clutch to take us into overtime. Damage from the Capcan, the end from the Oryx, and map 2 is G2.
Quickly sending some BM the other way. Alamau just shouting at them because they've managed to come back into this game, because those first 3 rounds looked hopeless from a G2 perspective.
Let's go outside 5 minutes.
And they're taking a 5-minute break quickly. They need to get themselves on the same page.
Wow. One more map. One of these 2 teams will go home, and we'll have a quick break before we find out who we say goodbye to and who carries on the fight.
I'm Nicholas Morton, but you know me as Pingu. I'm a 2-time Rainbow Six Siege World Champion and former top Rainbow Six Siege player in Pro League. Welcome to my Siege Ranked Bootcamp. We're talking 20 seconds left on the clock, you got the diffuser in hand, what do? Play the way that you're comfortable with, because you have confidence when you're in this position. That is when you're gonna be at your very best. Good luck.
Hello, hello, and welcome back here. FaZe versus G2, and only one map left for one of them. That will be the end of the road for a fan favorite, a tournament darling, and, well, what better way to suffer heartbreak on Valentine's Day than being dropped out of the Six Invitational?
Is it really you want heartbreak on Valentine's Day? Is that...
Well,
is that what you want to be giving people?
I don't think I want to, but somebody's got to lose.
Very true.
I'm sorry.
Benja has probably can receive like some medal from G2 for keeping them alive, especially if they win the next map, because the young boy really went on a massive kill streak there. 15 on 7 after Fabian started shouting at them to get them back in rhythm, and it worked out. He continuously was finding these kills, these flanks, these big plays that kept G2 in the game.
So, on map 3, obviously the way it's sorted is the flip of the coin. And after the aggression of map 2, we're curious to see what the growth is. Well, I can tell you that FaZe will be defending first.
Okay.
I'm assuming they won the coin flip because we are going to Theme Park, which is a good one for defenders. So this first half could be quite telling of G2's energy. And if we get to OT, then it's the other way around. G2 will have the overtime first defense. So
we'll get to see. So far, both these maps have been decided in regulation. Both have been decided in 12 rounds. Are we going to see another 12 rounds? Are we going to go all the way to 15 again? I think it's LMAO just sending some words of love and encouragement to FaZe before they start.
I'm sure
it's that. It's Valentine's Day after all. Everybody getting ready? Headsets go on, the hands get dried and warmed. Last sips of water will be ingested.
I like how you're trying to make that tense.
It is tense. I mean, we're getting into the last map. One of them is going to go home.
True, but
who knows? What if you get knocked out because you didn't drink enough water that day?
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated. This is a hydration check.
Yeah, stay hydrated. Stay ready. Stay eyes locked on the screen for our map 3. Theme Park is hefty. You're looking at good place and swings for defenders. I think one of the problems, you know, maybe there might be solutions for it in the ban phase. I'm not sure what G2 might lead in, but we know that FaZe is probably going to go the same way. And there it is. Dockerby removed first of all. That's pretty consistent. They just really hate going against Dockerby. The Ying is the response. I'm curious to see if we might get maybe an Azami, maybe a playback. It's a powerful operator, but FaZe have been using her so well.
I think FaZe have been using her more effectively than they have been on G2. But that's mostly due to, I'm sorry to say it, but Doki having the tendency to die a bit early. So only having 2 barriers tossed up, then dying with the rest in pocket. Happened like 3 rounds or something where playing as I mean,
okay.
FaZe instead are going to do it.
Okay. I mean, you know, I guess that's the thing. It's obviously their own mindset. For my money, they were using her more powerfully.
Yeah.
They probably just don't want to deal with it here because, as I said, it is a hefty defender-sided or defender-driven map. You have more limitations, and they think that they can utilize those the same way they used the Azami to potentially push on the previous ones and drive that idea further forward. Hey, it's an Azami-less showdown. I guess let's see if it works in G2's favor. You've got, at the start of this, a bit of a smoke war. You've got ourselves down towards throne, the backline site, the sort of holding pen on the corner of this, and with a couple of smokes and a man who can look through them and somebody who can look through electronics, this might turn into a bit of a bloodbath.
It could become a bloodbath. IQ at least 6 picked out, or re-picked out, will become a line for now. G2 is not going to be playing that game of trying to find the person scanning their own electronics with their own electronic scanner. Vanderwires are going to be set up on 2 of the 3 double walls, which means that the barrels is going to be remaining a little bit weak compared to the rest. Drones are coming through. Blur is going to be figuring that out quickly as well. But to counteract that bit of a weaker wall, there's going to be players right above barrels the entire time. Which means that G2 will have to clear out that side of the map first if they do want to go for set breach. So it might just be more worth it to just go for a completely different approach that way. Grenade for a hatch use, that is...
I
mean, it's a use of it.
It's a use of it.
Ooh. Never really too happy to see it.
There's a couple of pings on players. Benja, he's trying to sneak his way around. There seems to be a bit of motion just on the back end, but he's holding off and hoping the rotate happens towards the site. There's one. There's the back of one other. They can't get the connection. Cyber with the C4 at the same time. Too many targets, and unfortunately Benja was a bit blurred between all of them. The room was suddenly flooded. And FaZe had a quick reaction there to be able to pull the kill onto the back of it.
I was going to say, there was some good shepherding from G2. I mean, they managed to clear out the roamers quite quickly. It's just that Benji got overwhelmed by like 3 people running at him at the same time there. Doki will find a response. That's Cyber taken off the board. It's the Capcan as well. Might still be some of the enter denial devices around and about they need to be careful of. Especially on the side doors, because Throne Room is known to be a site where attackers often run out of time, where suddenly they have to go for a last Hail Mary push in the last 20 seconds on that clock. And that's when those EDDs are very effective, but by just checking, I don't see any of them currently on the board or on any of the doors, so they might be more spread around on the actual top floor.
In terms of theme throughout these two teams as well, throughout this tournament, the theme has generally been a little bit back and forth, but away from them more than anything. It's as you would expect. They've done better on their defenses. W7M were able to beat G2 on it in an 8-7 sort of showdown. FaZe lost against M80 on the map as well, but G2 also had a very strong performance against Koi. Oh, there's a bit of a break, a limit of
soft breach only instead of the hard.
Yeah, so they've found themselves eyeing up in towards it, and without the route through. There's one take though. There's somebody close to the left. There's a second handed to them. Blur. He's sort of playing shooting ducks right now, but with 20 seconds, they got to see if they can try and get those ducks in the line, march them in the site, and get the kit down. Cover from Doki. Lets the other two in. Souls pre-fires the Dragon Door, but he's tucked around on the back end of a corner. The 3 versus 1. One of them's getting the diffuser down. They have a little bit of wiggle room and a lot of cover and a lot of the range. They're trying to find the tail end. The Claymore almost put him into the fight, but Alamau pulls it back, and 2 bodies gone at the start. Leads to a woohoo at the end.
Of course! Did I say Jeremy's clear? I am the genius.
Lots of energy. Doki calling himself a genius right there for a call he made.
3v5 on throne defense. Let's fucking go, boys!
Okay. They are having lots of confidence right now after that round.
I mean, it was a 2 versus 5-ish. There was 3 of them.
3v5, yeah. It was,
but, you know. Maybe Doki has also forgotten Carl's name. The same way Fabian did.
Who knows?
I mean, either way, he isn't wrong. They lost the 2 opening bodies. They were limited on their hard breach, which also didn't pop off properly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to be talking about as well. It's like they had the right IDs, or the crossfires were there, it's just the hard breach only destroyed the soft for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, that's always a big blow, because, you know, Blur was set up with there with the diffuser, and instead he had to go through split, which is just a lot more dangerous to go through often.
5 seconds remaining.
When FaZe were on their attacks on this map in group stages, they only got 1 of them against them. And then when G2 were on their defenses against Koi, they got 5 of them. It was a 3-3 against W7M. It was a little bit more of an even-handed showing, at least in the groups matches.
Yeah.
So, FaZe really need to capitalize on this first half.
They do. They need to get as many rounds as possible to buy themselves a buffer. Also, attacks have been looking, you know, okay on the previous 2 maps. I mean, it's nothing perfect we saw. Club was better than we saw from Villa, however. Theme Park is a bit more of a complicated map in terms of attacking. And as G2 is going to be putting themselves close to the windows and the doorways of the actual site. Blur carrying that diffuser with Zofia up onto the rappel. So be careful to not be jumped out upon. has a drone, will be moving that through. Actually doesn't spot that bullet because he just went to crouch down, but he's seen the opening, and that means that they are aware of the fact that someone could be on that balcony.
Well, there's an opening. Toki removed by Souls. Once again, the first body has gone into the favor here of FaZe on the approach. They at least didn't lose 2 on the back of it. Now they are still trying to find at least another engagement with the grenades potentially going to look their way up from underneath. Benja just needs the right call, the right ping, and the right time to go. There's the second drop of a camera. Have to pay attention towards the top of the balcony here. There will be a risk if you pull a pin and you don't have anything to cover because, well, it doesn't take too long for them to just swing their way around and get a bit more of an angle. That will give the reveal. The reason that flew on by is because nobody's close. So he pulls the pin back in, tries to explode somebody in the site, but they're not there. They've tucked themselves. Arcade, top of the yellow stairs, and otherwise holding on the door, waiting for just somebody from G2. It's Souls. It's the Kit on the far end, shot off the window. And with a bit of jump out, a bit of motion, the pre-fire is over the top. They crouch their way back down onto Dragon. But FaZe, they've been able to take a second body without any response.
G2 also not really in a close position to pick up that diffuser, which means that as Alamau goes down now, it is going to be another response. It's only up to Benja, and he doesn't even get anywhere. It's a flawless round from FaZe, who have a very strong response. After dropping that diffuser especially, that round was probably going to be over, with the only way of that winning would be to take down every single FaZe member. But those 2 initial kills FaZe got, just no response from G2, and that is something that Fabian has been hammering on during the Wolves game. It's been something he started shouting over the previous map we've played. And again, the same issues kind of starting to show up.
Slightly different, I would say.
It is slightly
different with you because the way FaZe roam and the way FaZe move around a map isn't quick. They'll have one loose player that's sort of like a Roomba. They go very slow, low to the ground, and they go from space to space and room to room. And if they're clear, well, they're still looking for a fight.
Yeah.
But unless they have direction, they're just going to wander until they find it. And the longer that goes on, the more likely it is to happen. But it's not that they're directly driving towards it as they do often their attack. There was just, well, we've searched everything else. Let's have a hop out and let's find this fight out here. G2 taking so much time, so much spread out, so much room for this Death Roomba to find its way around. It's always going to find a mess. Whether it cleans it up is just how long G2 takes to offer it to them. Because otherwise, FaZe, especially on a map like this, they sit more close to site. They'll generally keep most of the core locked in, as opposed to G2, where middle of the round, first minute is when they're sort of hoping to get an engagement on their defense often.
Like I'm just going to call FaZe Death Roombas now.
Yeah, I think it's the Death Roomba movement.
Of course, but you got the point there, like the player roaming around, but it's still like you need to be working together at least in some capacity, that if a player is providing issues, that you are able to hunt him down and collapse on him. And that's something we didn't see in that last round, as the Death Roomba was allowed to just slowly rotate back, as you mentioned. So let's hope that that changes for now. We need to see these straight kills, otherwise your attack is not going to be successful. Otherwise those entries will be quite helpful as well. Both so far went FaZe's way. Of course, the 3v5 we had on Throne was eventually won by G2, but it's not like they were in control of the early parts of that round. It was only when they started executing that things went well for them. As the first grenades are being tossed in, Doki was thinking about going through the middle, but instead he fell back as Cyber takes down Blur as the diffuser dropped again, and there's no reply just yet. Instead, is Doki trying to take a fight elsewhere and being worse for it.
I mean, that's twice. Well, I was going to say 3 times in a row that they've been able to get that entry kill unreturned at first. They're able to at least find one back on the second pretty quickly, with Alamau leaning into the next engagement. But, you know, they're sort of struggling to get their feet into the building. The cap can pops off, pops Alamau. And there's a take from Virtue. They did lean into that, they just held on, but again, there's just always another angle, always another player right now. FaZe, as I said, they don't set up too far away from site. The swings are coming pretty much from site door, if not 4 steps away from it. However, there's always, because of that, another FaZe player ready to step in if you keep all of the parts move your sight close, then you can always make sure they can be manipulated. The corner watch, the reveal that he's being watched. 30 seconds and hoping the catch is on the angle. They can sort of sit on the far end. Virtue finds Astro with a hell of a connection, and with 25 seconds and the 1 versus 2, he's going to see if he can try and drive into the next engagement. There's the pop of the mirror window. They're close to his right. He's with the pistol. Just sees the shoulder, but cannot get the connection, and Souls finally puts it over the line there for FaZe.
Managed to get a close here. Virtue, he fought back, but it would have been an ace clutch at that point, and that it's a lot to ask. I don't think we've seen one yet during a side. At least we haven't cast at one. And that just shows you that even if you find 3, these last 2 players, they're just going to be sitting tight. They're going to be holding their angles, and they're going to try and figure out where you're coming from and just punish you for it. We're headed back towards Throne. Now, the initial start of the round was quite good for G2. They managed to shepherd all the players back to the site, but then lost 2 players as a result whilst doing so.
I was going to say, I gave you a look when you said the start.
Yeah, I know.
I wanted to see how you phrased that.
As in, like, they got the shepherding done, it's just that they didn't pick up the kill. So it's like, the ID went well, the execution just a little bit poorly. And that brings us back to, well, that 3v5 clutch we had. They need to do better now. They need to do the same shepherding, but actually take them down this time.
I believe A-Stream has joined us.
I have heard so as well.
Hey, welcome. G2 versus FaZe. We're on map 3. And FaZe won the coin flip, so they've opted to start on their defense on theme. The first round was pretty intense, and then since then, FaZe have pretty handily taken the next 2 back, and the whole while on this map had full control of the entry, both times getting at least 2 before somebody was then traded out. Okay, now we're up to speed. Let's get into it. Cyber. He's getting himself with a little bit of a movement on here on the back end of Cash. He won't stick around too long. You're trying to make the top floor problematic, but you're also not trying to lose your life because of it. Waste time.
Yeah. That's all you want to do. You want to just waste that time as LMI is ready to just zoom in with the Gara hook. Drone just confirmed it's going to be clear. Should be entering any second now. There he is. He's inside. He's going to be clearing out the bathroom. Going to be clearing out the office as well. We'll now figure out that the top might just as well be under some G2 control. However, Cyber's still around in the control room. He has been droned out now, and that means he is going to be an issue. How are they going to be dealing with him? Well, there's a player on the window to see C4 comes through, but Doki quickly shoots it out. So, they're going to be losing a player to that this time.
They've spent a lot of drones. They only have a couple left now. And that, for the whole of theme, for trying to get ideas, is not fantastic. You've lost a lot of intel. It's a wide map, and you can see they're still trying to hunt the first player they were trying to hunt. How many drones have they just sort of thrown into the meal that FaZe has churned up and said, delicious, I'm still going to take more of your time? They haven't even been able to get everybody back to the site itself, and the site itself is still a problem. It's locked in, and you can guess where people are going to be, sure. But it's 4 corners, a lot of half walls, and problematic places. Those are quick checks when you're sort of trying to enter from either split or the breaches or the back end, depending on which route. There's always going to be multiple guesses to be made.
Fiddy King and Cyber are going to be the most problematic though, as they are off-site, and those are currently have gone unspotted as well. Calls being made to start opening up on the yellow wall so they can start pushing and potentially go for and execute. Cyber still rotating around and trying to find himself that very first entry. Jonas Gemini Replicator might actually be able to find out about that piece of information. Will be shut down, but instantly going aggressive.
Doki, he gets dropped in the engagement. They had 3 people going for the fight. They at least get the kill and will get the player back up at 30 seconds. And they got to start putting the pressure onto the site. The grenade will get the mute jammer. The wall will get popped open. There was a bit of a problem with this last time where that happened. The soft gets destroyed. They don't have the rotate. They're looking for the fight. And, well, actually, it gets all the way this time round. They're looking for the angles. They get the player in the corner down. They want to drive the kit forward in a line blur. He can't quite get it through. There's only a pocket full of seconds. They've got to keep pushing. And there it is! Twice in a row, we've seen G2 force their way into that site.
Let's keep this up!
played, guys.
Good shit, but you're fucking insane!
And if you may have also missed the clips going around, a certain Lord Emperor shouted for the first time in 6 months, by his own admission, to bring the energy back into a team that, to be honest, at that point, I think they needed it.
They needed it. They definitely did. As quickly discussing what the plan will be, how they want to be pushing through, what form of order their grenades need to go in. We're headed back to Bunk. I do have to say that last round, you would almost say poor drone utility. I mean, they managed to get away with it. They used the Gemini replicator to find
I don't think you would almost say. I think
you would say it.
I think you would say
yes.
Poor drone utility.
It's just that, you know, they used A drones to get Cyber, basically knock him around on the map and get him to go towards maintenance. Then they found him there with a Gemini replicator and finally punished him. Luckily for G2, the rest was actually located on the site itself, where there is only so many places they can hide. There's only so many places you can hold off on. And they managed to succeed in taking those down. They managed to find those kills and find the round. But now a different site comes up. If they are struggling with the same drone utility and drone network, they might be in a bit more trouble this time.
G2, will they be able to get the entry a little bit earlier? Technically, the first time they've broken the curse of losing 2 opening bodies. But as weird as it is to say, on theme, they've only been able to take one site twice in its Armory Throne. Maybe it's because of familiarity. It was always the sort of big, hefty bastion that all the teams would go with on their first, and I guess you practice that more than any others because of it. But it's the loose gunners, the gunfights that haven't quite been connecting. Benja, probably credited, and rightfully so, as the reason G2 is still in this game after his heroics on the second map. He's looking to try and start his pressure onto the third, and well, he hasn't quite been able to have the same success on the loose motions and movements he's had prior.
He's just waiting patiently for now. He has some utility, and he's hoping to find a player rotating down the yellow stairs if pressure rises a bit too much. Grenade's going to be coming in, going to be tossed right over. Doki dies. That grenade is also going to be finding an injury, and it's going to be a double kill on either side.
Yeah, that's it. It's suddenly the trade out. They get the lock in there onto Astro. They waited to pull the pin under the cover of the E1D so they wouldn't just be jumped on and swung down on. And here they've been able to at least hold them off on the opposite end phase. They made sure that they pulled some bodies, but do they know of the one body behind them that's sort of causing a little bit of width problem? Souls. He has some wiggle room, he has some danger, makes his presence known in minute 10. They can try and deal with it as the breach starts to get popped open. You want to try and slink your way in just behind the train in the corner and have that as the lockdown, utilizing the mirror window for their own selfish needs. How do you try and cover that little distance into the site?
So Lee's gonna keep Souls at bay a little bit, meaning he can only be using that one door through the split. Birch is gonna be jumping in, he's gonna check the balcony mostly. There's a player out there. Crouch peek comes through, but no connection upon him. Actually takes a lot of damage, finds the kill. That's huge, because now they know one person inside, and Virch is going to be going for the swing right here. He's trying to go for a bit of a bait as Blur takes damage. Vida King comes out on top.
He's crept his way into the side in the time, though, and there it is. Blur gets the connection. He's going to see if he can try and get the plant down as Souls. He's making his way around the hit of the mirror window, the reveal of the player. They should get the plant down, and they do. They probably can't get out of that. A bit of a reveal. The impact gets him so low, but there's not a second. And now, with a gun either side, Souls has to try and drive himself into 2 1 versus 1s. It's very tricky to pull. They're swinging either side of the doors. It's Benja to lock it out. And G2 pull 1 round ahead.
Good, man. Fucking nuts, Byron! I knew this China guy would kill me, but it's fine. Like, you killed the yellow guy in the mirror bench.
Yeah, it was really good plan.
Let's go.
Well, this is the team working as a unit of 5. This is what they've called for. Both teams have a timeout as well. Plenty of time to take it.
Yep.
We've given a bit of context as to how Theme handles for these 2 maps throughout this tournament. For G2, probably the best example is versus W7M. A 3-apiece half went all the way to OT, and then they found it out. FaZe, however, had a much rougher time trying to attack it against M80, only pulling 1 of their attacks in the half. FaZe need an even half here to give themselves more wiggle room to put pressure onto G2.
And it's going to be in the back of their heads, you know, knowing that they have struggled so far with this map on attack. They need that extra round. They need to make sure they give themselves as much time as possible to grow into their attacks.
10 seconds remaining.
And as we go on to what could be the last defense FaZe will play in this tournament, we see a Montaigne being locked in, we see an Ossa being locked in. Lots of shields is what G2 is going to be bringing here. Of course, utility put down on FaZe's side to slow them down as much as they can in terms of castle barricades, banshees, but also the EDDs. How successful is it going to be? It worked against G2 when Wolves did it. Will it work now? Early grenade, they're just waiting for a bit of information, but it seems like no one's out there, so Benja puts it back in pocket, starts opening up some rotations over the bottom floor before he joins the rest of his team.
Yeah, they're seeming to go for a slightly different approach this time. That was poor timing, though. Mistakes happen. The drone was blown out of midair, and, well, drone economy hasn't been the sharpest for G2 throughout this tournament. At least the guns can sort of make up for that. Bullet takes a bit of a scrap inside bathroom. There's firing, just some attention back as well, but doesn't want to stay there too long. There's the drop of the Monty. You'll see the control room start to fall into some control. The call that, yep, Monty's on the door now. They'll get the breach towards the side. The impacts, they're just going to try and do a lot of damage. The second does some back, but the Monty is still standing for now. They're concerned about the break underneath him. They get the angle. They get some more damage. There's the drop. The first falls. Benja, he's able to do some of the work. He's got to move away from that X-Kairos. Please don't go down to the X-Kairos.
Don't think he will. Does a lot of damage.
He's so close to.
I mean, he was a Willa anyway. He just wants to get in quickly so he can go for a plant or either a quicker push forward. C4 comes in. Luckily, he doesn't take down Alamau. His cyber strikes as well will find Doki. Not the confirmation, though.
The Monty, they've been able to get themselves still buried further, but round the back, Cyber, he pushes it a bit too far, and Astro takes care of the Monty. There's Virtue and Blur, and suddenly it's just Vidiking versus the world. He's tucked himself in close, but with a minute on, they have a lot of time to see if they can try and set themselves up for the pinch. He's had to rotate to keep an eye on both sides. He's going back and forth. You have Talon shields too. And you kind of have that as the second step in. They're watching. The swing's going to go wide instead. They're aware of it. So they rotate somewhere else. He's got to cross the divide, take the first fight with the Ossa. Cannot find it. G2 with a 4-2 half into their defense onto theme.
Let's just continue on defense, guys.
Yeah, that's fucking
I like when Benja's like, let's just continue in defense. We've been doing so good. Yes, you have been doing well. You have been doing better than your first 3 rounds of Villa. Okay, you had some struggles here as well. In between, you managed to get back into it. You managed to turn it around, 4-3. Now they're headed over towards the defense. Now, you mentioned it before, FaZe only managed to find a single round in their attacks. Now they're going up against G2, who really like to play this map.
I mean, that's
1-on-1 now.
That's sort of the setup, isn't it? That's sort of, this went from being the hurdle that G2 needed to surmount, and some people, based on these maps, predicted it would be a 2-1 series because we opened on Club, we opened on a map G2 have banned quite a lot that they've sort of let through. It was a gamble. It didn't quite work. The first 2 maps as well. For context, it was a 7-5 either way to the 2 respective teams. FaZe on the first, G2 on the second. It has been neck and neck throughout this matchup so far, and for the first time, it feels like a team is driving a lot of this. And now, depending on the first round, the first result might be the call of a timeout or a bit of motion. The line's been consistent. The Sam cams to see if they can try and get a lockdown. But with Virtue and Blur stepping up, if Doki and Alamau were a reason to drive the team to playoffs, and Benja's been a reason to keep them here, seems like Virtue and Blur really want that mantle for themselves.
Doki is looking to go for a bit of an aggressive first swing. He heard someone just get up on top of the roof. Doesn't quite see any drones to come through. E1D gets activated. Astro takes a lot of damage, but lives with just a single amount of HP. They're rushing through the site.
They're right inside, and Blur is able to get the first Virtue. They get the trade-off on the back end of it, and I say they are the two names that are really bringing this map together, and they're able to hold off on another quick strike, the same as we saw as the attempted open attack against Villa before. Here, Vidaking goes aggressive against the Sulis, gets the lockdown, takes a lot of damage in the meantime though. So it'll only take a scrap and a scrape from one of the remaining players. They've got quick firing guns, and they're more than happy to swing around. And there's still a lot of structure to take care of here. 1E, 1D, 1 Samcam. You got to play with what's open, and they know where the diffuser is. They can just shut down.
The player on top of Dragon of G2 that actually had the spot, like, there's 3 people in front of the door, basically saved the life, because that allowed the rest of G2 that was inside, you mentioned it before, Blur, Virtue, you know, to get in a position to fight back, to get those kills, to set themselves up for success. And now the drones roll through. There's only 3 available here over the 2 players still left alive. 1 player spotted out. The second one has been seen before. I believe that all 3 of the G2 members are currently inside. Yes, they are. So all they need to do on FaZe's side is find an opening and then cut the pie. Get them one by one. All G2 need to do is set up crossfires.
That's it. You think of how awkward things are to break through with Split, with the angles that are there. You think of what FaZe did, and well, they attempted a rush. It's that sort of two-edged sword. You know, they read that there's only 2 G2 players on site. Vidaking slips his way up Split. It's a scrappy fight on a doorway, and well, with the first falling, Virtue watching one end of it. He's got himself 20 seconds and isolated in the next. Not for very long. G2, 4 rounds in a row to put them up 5-2. And a timeout is called.
It was only expected.
Os caras podem estar na ânsia agora de querer terminar o jogo rápido. Então vamos fazer nossas plays. A gente já treinou, lateralizar café, lateralizar cozinha. Vamos ter leitura do que eles estão fazendo para primeiro decidir o que a gente vai fazer, tá bom? Drone no primeiro mapa, pode tentar posicionar algum drone, a gente decide e faz junto. Usa isso que eu falei, usa a ânsia deles de terminar o mapa logo, porque eles estão um lado de vantagem e com a vantagem. Então usa a ânsia deles de terminar o mapa pra gente tentar isolar alguma kill, tá? Jogar bem lento na ânsia deles. E depois, no final do round, a gente executa os 5 juntos com uma contagenzinha e engole os caras. Demorou?
Beleza.
Bora, galera. Round. Eu acredito que a gente consiga buscar isso aí, velho.
Bora, vamos
galera.
Bora
pra cima, Vita. Bora, Vita. Bora, cara. Bora, pai. Aí fiquei, bebê. Bora, Suzão.
Okay, well, I hope translations are posted in the comments, but you hope it's the words FaZe need. You hope it's something that can bring them back in. Seeing them this late in a game and a player not having a kill, it shows the way to the tournament, it shows the way to the map and the game. It's tough to try and bring yourself back. And now all they have to fight for is what is ahead of them. Ascends is potentially going to get brought. We'll see if that gets locked in alongside the back of a Monty. They're trying to limit some of the freewheeling play and maybe just sort of step for step themselves into the site.
Yeah, that might be it. They might just try and go for a very orchestrated attack right onto the site. Something that doesn't have too much around it. You don't need too much control.
There's a change.
It changes to a bit more of a quicker pace.
Maybe they assumed it was the other side on the top 4.
Could be, yes.
You'd see a more likely Monty on the sort of initiation.
Well, also sense, I think.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it, you often take the computers under control. Like you can easily roll in the sense light screen from there.
Where are you gonna go, Amaru?
It's always a question, but first of all, where's Doki gonna?
He's going outside the door. He's
just leaning out, you know?
Hoping to take the fight. He's waiting for a rappel sound. He's waiting for it. Do they have the ping? Are you gonna go up here, Cyber? Oh, he's not gonna risk it. He knew he was being watched, and Cyber was watching it, but he didn't want to risk the engagement over the top, the long animation.
Yeah.
That's why he's opting for the opposite face.
Because as soon as you go up onto the rappel, up onto the roof, there's no way of stopping that. You're also not going to be fighting back to a P90 that's going to be firing right at you. So, right call, mate, there. Is Doki unable to find the entry kill here? But that means that it is still going to be a 5-on-5. And now we can start questioning, where are you going to go, Amaru? What's your plan?
Well, you can have pace coming up underneath. You can have pace onto the windows, a little bit more direct onto sight, just tucked by the side of the fridge, so you have some hard rather than usually hitting the rotate. It's one of the first rounds from FaZe where we haven't had a Lion in a very long period of time. And obviously it's only the sort of second attack on this map, but still it was mixed success, I think. It's definitely a game that G2's woken up to and is more than happy to move and manipulate on the back end. Might be pressure coming towards, yeah, the mirror on the back. Souls comes up right behind them. There's a swing around the gate. They're tucked in the vault. Bullet gets the first. They're able to find the second and the third. And there's Doki acting to at least stop the Amaru and get one trade back, but with Bullet finding one more. What a fantastic execute this has been from FaZe. Doki gets one on his right. They're all behind him though. And the perfect response from the timeout.
So what they needed that quick bit of pace. They needed to find themselves a way to stop the momentum of G2 truly. That's what they did here. They quickly humbled them a little bit because they have been quite shouty, or rather, LMAO has been quite shouty towards them, and just quickly putting up an execute like that is almost picture perfect. You basically have everything going for you. You get the diffuser on the ground. That's just what you need in a situation like this, because they are currently 2 rounds away from being knocked out of the tournament, from being sent back home. And they don't want that to happen. So they need to pull out these pocket strats, specifically tailored to deal with G2 setups. And now I'm looking over to the left-hand side of my screen and see a fuse that is currently being hovered over. Of course, still some time for it to be potentially picked out. But I'm wondering how they're going to be using this, because it's not like we're in Throne where you can send it in from above.
No, there's not a huge selection of fusible locations.
Okay, they pick it off last second. I was going to say, because if they stick with this, I'm really curious to see how they use it. Demonte has made a reappearance though, so we are going to be seeing that operator to be played out by FaZe. And now the question is, are you going from east or from west? Because if you go from west, you have the opportunity to take down some of these mirror windows without being challenged by them.
Turkey. They wanted to be the first point of contact last time round. They were, unfortunately, the last one standing by the end. Everything was so sudden. So he might be a little bit more direct. Opens an angle, hopes for a fight. Nobody is home. Instead, it's towards the top. FaZe, they're not being sort of too blind in their approach here. And, couldn't quite get that off in time with the window open, the motion. There's a player on cams and no, just out of range. And this is what I mean. They seem to have a very good idea of the games that Doki wants to play here.
Yeah, Doki wants to be getting that first kill for his team so badly. He also wants to be hunted so badly. And that is actually the Solos being spotted out whilst on the gadget. So Doki, no clue he has been spotted right now. He's going to be receiving a bit of pressure soon from FaZe. And if he's the first to fall, FaZe are going to be using that.
Well, they just thought he was still tucked on the other side of the hard. He'd, thankfully for him, moved somewhere else, sees the Monty. He's popping for a reveal. He knows there's a player out there, but doesn't shoot at the right moment and slips away before the pressure becomes insurmountable. Rotates towards the bathroom, hopes to get the width elsewhere, hopes to get more of a direct catch, and just misses the slip on by the impact onto anything else being attempted. And, well, there's the wall being popped open.
He took care of his air jab so we can run into Cash later on to go for a bit of a flank, as FaZe now seeming like they can go for an execute. Demonte slowly starting to work his way towards the site. Air jab actually still up there, so hasn't been able to take care of it. So they already placed a new one indeed. Either of the two. Now they're inside and they can go for a cleansing.
Yeah, at this point you're sort of thinking, what are we waiting for? The kit is being put down. All 10 players are still alive, and this feels, well, like they weren't quite sure, G2. They'd slipped on by. The breach had come against it. Trades come out, generally in the favor of G2, but the time is ticking. They have window control. They have a Monty. How do you push them off? A bit of an explosion, a bit more damage to Vidaking, but he wins out against Virtue. The hop through, and they're going to see if they can bully, but Vidaking is still doing the damage. The Monty, he's pushed in a corner. They're trying to get the shots on the side. side. There it is, finally, and the take on the opposite end, but he's got to reload, and the whip is coming round, and FaZe, just in a 5 versus 5, get a plant, and, well, understandably, G2 take the timeout. Let's hear what they're talking about.
It's great and all that we have solutions, but we need to do it middle of the round. We need to do it middle of the round. It's great we have solutions, but we need to do the mid round. Like that round, we have so much time to send Jake underneath and C4 that multi. We need to take care of, we need to take care of the easy solutions here. Let's not make the game more difficult. The two of you need to calm yourself down a little bit. You're starting to stutter, Carl. We know how good you can be, so let's get back on track. Okay. We calm ourselves down. We get the simple solution.
We're getting sidetracked by the cafe guys. It's obviously a dragon push. They're nomad enough. I even said they're gonna push China, you know?
Yes, full focus. Let's fucking go, boys. Full energy again. Let's fucking get this done.
Okay.
We're doing a multi-push like that as well. I think we can also hit the javelin.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. I needed someone to go on my camp.
Guys, you're gonna go back now and they have to jump to surprise them because now they know we're gonna jump. Go back. Yeah, go back.
You guys are really stirring.
Okay, well, that's it. No more timeouts from either team. From this point onwards, it's just a few rounds of Siege, one victor, one loser, one continues a lower bracket fight today, and one gets dropped out the tournament. G2. They were up 5-2, 2 rounds have slipped through their fingers here after the timeout from FaZe.
Yep.
They can have the same response. This is as good as in the bag. It seemed like they're sort of saying, look, we have time we're not using here.
Also, we're overcomplicating things, right? Because he said use the simple solutions.
Yeah.
Which means that they've been trying to go for things that might just be too complicated at that moment in time. Either way, they're going for a new bunk hold. They're not going to be going down to drone straight away. Of course, we haven't really seen the proper attack from FaZe Clan there, as they went for a rush attempt that was quickly stopped by Blur and Virtue.
Well, another Monty. 3 C4s, Dangers are soft, a Solace and a couple of impacts, and an Echo Drum. They've really sort of got most of what you'd want to try and stop the Frenchman Mountain from rolling his way in and doing what he did on the previous round, which was the perfect cover for the kit to get planted. Bullet has started to pop off, I'm going to say a little bit more than he has. I'm not saying pop off specifically, but he's popped a couple of heads, and that's a good sign for FaZe. They need
showing up
all of their players, exactly. Benja, in the meantime, still hasn't spent a lot of his energy on the previous map, and, you know, if he becomes a little bit more of a danger on their defense, that's something G2 could really get behind.
So what they're talking about, full energy again. They need to give it all they have. Because if you don't win this one, there is nothing to go up against anymore afterwards. So, give it your all to get through now. RC Roteros are being used, only one left from Bullet, just to get rid of some of that utility early on.
Goodbye, A-Stream.
Oh, goodbye, A-Stream.
I believe.
I didn't know. I didn't hear. Either way, it is going to be Doki trying to get himself hunted again. He's taking down some drones. He's still running around the top of Dragon. And now the multi is coming after him. Now they're going to be giving in to his wishes.
There it is. They have the Echo, and they need to try and rotate someone back round. There's some support. It's the C4 that gets them. And they said, let's deal with the money the simple way. Nothing more simple than blowing them up. Top of Dragon. Cyber does get one back. They were able to at least get revenge against Virtue, the C4 wielder that took them out. But the trade, oh, it's still coming across the board. Bullet, they're able to find one. Benja does find souls at the same time. They get some control. But as more damage comes across, there's another rotate. That's just punished here. Benja caught out. Doki finds Bullet in the meantime. We're still seeing a couple of these mistakes from the guns of G2. They're sort of running around underneath. Well, that's dangerous. Blur is gone. Doki in the 2 versus 1. 40 seconds. Cyber and Vidaking seeing if they can try and piece it together. They have time. They have only a single drone. And that grenade will do a bit of damage to Doki. He's drifting on. He thinks he might know where a fight is. It's round to his left. If he can isolate a 1 versus 1, this could be big. There's the first, and there it is. Popped around on the door, the pre-fire towards the second. You're looking at time limitations. Vidaking, he's going to air jab it, drop the drone, and rotate his way towards the chassis. Do they know? There's the impact. There's the catch. There's the play. There's the fight. And Doki just gets the wing.
Nice! Let's go, guys!
Perfectly played to get rid of that air jab.
I was scared for a second there because, you know, it's surely he's going to go off at that point, but then the first whiff as well. By the way, perfect grenade from Cyber, just taking down the mirror, bringing it into a 1v1. And then they wanted to go get that plan down.
It's the best operator in the game.
Guys, I don't think they will rush, so be ready for the round.
I want to know who the best operator in the game is now.
Solus, I assume. I think that is the tagline for Solus.
Yeah, definitely a good operator to use on your defense here. Just so much information you can get out of it. Different than a Pulse, as Pulse gets heartbeats.
Yep.
This gets everything that has an electronic beat. Now, 4-6, map and series point for G2. And we're headed back towards Throne, where it started on their defense. They had a rush round they averted. FaZe, what are you gonna do? You gonna bring pace again? On a round as important as this, on a round that could be your final one in the major? Or are you gonna be slowing it down just slightly? And see if you can go for a more traditional take. By the way, Doki's gonna go for another set of spawn peaks. He's waiting for a repel sound. This time he does have Benja quite close to him, not actually looking out a window either, but
ready for it.
Ready for a jump out.
They're hoping they can sort of force the width here on the approach of Doki, and Benja can swing into that as a surprise factor, but nothing is being gifted to him. How long does he sit? He's happy he's not being droned. They're happy not to even push it. FaZe aren't taking the risk. They're not going to fall for the bait. They're instead going to sort of play themselves in as they've done before. They go with the direct route. Please don't, Doki. You're being watched.
Oh, he was so piddly close
to the fight. The diffuser's still close. They're baiting the angle. The drone comes out. There's the E1D. There's the jump out. There's the fight. No! He cannot quite get it. The timing is away from him. A lot of damage on the risk. And might be the best operator in the game, but unfortunately couldn't find the connection. They almost lose out. Benja is the second there too.
As long as Benja stays alive, they still have a good fighting chance, but that diffuser being used as a bit of a bait there. Successful. We saw BDS do it as well in their game yesterday. But now Cyber pushes on, hoping to find another entry. Now E1Ds are giving away some spots. The Gemini Replicator is going to be confirming whether or not a rotation has come through in the meantime. And some of the G2 members are falling back. They need to go. Oh, Alamau just escaping with his life right there. Fida King just too slow to chase him down.
Yeah, he's got himself now on a back line. He's hoping it's gone a bit unchecked. He wants to be another loose problem that FaZe have to deal with, but they're step by step. And to be honest, catching G2 out of rotations has been a pretty good game from them throughout all of this so far. They're holding on. Tucked on the corner, waiting for just something to drift their way by FaZe. A steady roll of drones, a steady catch and intel, attention towards split, pressure onto the walls. They're looking in towards oil as well, and the breach starts to come together. They still have a man advantage, and Benja's close to the death as well. Can they get this? Look at the positions where you have Alamau, where you have Virtue. It's such a gamble, but sometimes it pays off. Virtue, a huge take back. Alamau, desperate for the next. There's more of a breach, but he's not handing it to them. He knows they gotta leave this route. He knows they got 20 seconds. Does he know there's two of them? Do they know about him? Peppering shots, pre-firing. Benja with one. There's Alamau for two. Bullet is all that is left for FaZe's hope of staying in SI 2023. But it is a goodbye from G2. And they will progress through the lower bracket.
A very hard-fought victory coming through from G2. The first map went away from them barely. The second, day one, just as close as a margin. And now they take the final one, 7-4. An extra round to spare before we went to 12. FaZe, their story ends here. They are knocked out. They will be going home. And G2, they will be facing on Dark Zero later today.
Two teams that had what can only be described as major changes and changes for the major. And at this point, it was always going to be a deep story of which one would lose, because two of them could rightfully have made statements for the win of the whole thing. But FaZe, unfortunately, their route ends here. A change of cameraman, not quite enough to change their aspect ratio on how they can take photos of this one. Unfortunately, it'll be from the plane home.
Still going to be some issues that G2 need to solve for their next game and potentially next day, because some of the issues we saw against Wolves started to show up again here today. Those issues, they sooner rather than later will become punished again in terms of a match loss. They will be victorious here. There's still some work to do for them, but at least they survive for another 3 hours.
And that's the worry right now for G2. 3 hours and only just. They know that they have a game ahead of them. It's against a team that's a little bit more rested, and sure, those teams generally failed yesterday, but one of those success stories might change the heads. We will be throwing to a quick break before we're back with the analysts to break it down.
I'm Nicholas Morton, but you know me as Pingu. I'm a two-time Rainbow Six Siege World Champion and former top Rainbow Six Siege player in Pro League. Welcome to my Siege Ranked Bootcamp. We're talking 20 seconds left on the clock, you got the diffuser in hand, what do you do? Play the way that you're comfortable with, because you have confidence when you're in this position, that is when you're gonna be at your very best. Good luck.
is the worst at throwing grenades? I would say...
Me. That's for sure me. I am the worst at throwing grenades.
The worst player in throwing grenades is Dash too. He killed our teammate with a C4, he killed himself with the Flores drone, and on screens he killed like 4 times in late, so he's not good with explosives.
I'd probably have to say Sweater, yeah. We can't give that guy utility.
The worst player at throwing grenades on our team is Users because he can't control his mouse.
I don't know why, but I just suck. And actually, compared to online, on the land build, the nades are like, because there's no ping, the nades are like so responsive, and I blew myself up like 3 times. I don't really care, but yeah, it's definitely me.
I would say... Actually, like, we've never had a Doki's accident, so no one in my team, to be honest.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Six Invitational 2023. Our B-Stream matchup has just ended with G2 victorious on Map 3 Theme Park. FaZe Clan eliminated from the tournament. Hello, I'm Milos Domenic, your host. With me on the analyst desk are, of course, Davmarta and Mandy. We started our pre-desk with them, but joining us, the massive man himself, Doki. Hello, congrats on the win.
Hello, guys. I've grown a bit since you've last seen, probably.
You might even be taller than me.
That's not hard.
It's a growth sprout in one game.
That's true.
All right.
I played bad in games, so I had to like just grow a bit IRL.
Compensate in other ways.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Wow. James, Mandy, you got any questions for a wonderful guest?
I couldn't help but notice that when Fabian took his tactical timeout, he pointed at you and said you, and I think it was Benja, do some calling on Theme Park. When you're in that early game, you got FaZe like running at you. What is like going through your head? Can you talk us through how you're trying to figure out what FaZe are trying to do?
So it was Carl or Alamo.
Okay, yeah.
We're both kind of main shot callers at IGLs, and we noticed that like, especially on the first map Clubhouse, we weren't speaking that much. So that's why we were losing the attacks because we had no plan. And then second map it got better, and then the third map, like we noticed we were slowing down a little bit again. So we took the time out to kind of like slow down and then reevaluate and make sure like we are both, me and Carl are both like we are having the heads that we need to be the vocal ones. So that was the reason for that. Yeah.
Speaking of timeouts, you had a couple during that series. Particularly memorable one was on Villa. You guys had just lost a flawless round. Cyber jumped out master, got a 2K. The vibe was clearly pretty down, and Fabian had a few choice words for you guys. What was it like? What was the vibe like in that moment? And how does that kind of hype up affect you moving forward into the rest of what eventually became a map win for you guys?
I think like that round that he jumped out master, that shouldn't be happening, right? So like, I said, guys, you are losing because you're like messing up, you're making the bad plays. And then Fabian obviously found that a good time to like step in and like really, really shake people about, like proper scream at them. And actually, surprisingly, I've never seen Fabian do that before. Like I've never seen him do it before. But he seems a bit of a guy, right? Like he's just
I mean, he used to be
a bad person.
Fabian, not bad. In the day, he was an incredibly toxic person in these ways, but he's changed.
He has changed. And I think that timeout was really good. I even said to him after the map, I was like, that timeout was like what won us around. Like woke people up, like shook us a bit because we weren't scared, but like we were like, whoa, hold on a minute. And then we just recentered our focus and easy.
Wow.
What happened with Wolves yesterday?
I mean, we did pick them, and I still think it's the right decision for us to pick them. I think we didn't play terrible, we just played a little bad individually. I think Alamo had a really bad map 1 and I had a really bad map 2, but they also played great. Like they've improved a lot since we've seen them last, so props to them. I think they showed it again versus last one, and like you should see in the emotions, like they really were wanting it. So I think they just played a really good game and we were caught off guard a little bit. So
you played Dark Zero in 3 hours.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you feel about that now that you finally know the news?
I think it's fine. Like I actually don't care who we play. Like it's the same for FaZe, right? If you say, "Oh, we're playing FaZe," like FaZe is some big name, but we're G2. Like we're not the bad team we used to be. So I'm fine. Even Fabian said in the timeout, he said, like, guys, you came into this tournament in the group shoes. We showed that we can win this tournament, and I do believe we did show that. We've been playing a little bit bad past 2 play days, but now I think we've woke up. We've awoke the beast, and it's time to go again against Dark Zero. So they should watch it definitely.
All right. Anything you'd like to say to G2 fans out there?
No. Hopefully, I'll see you in a few days. Hopefully, if we don't lose, and if we lose, then I'll probably never see you. So, yep. Bye-bye.
On that lovely note, I hope we get to see you because interviews are not the same without you, Doki.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Valentine's and the opposite side of it, right?
Look at this on the screen. I actually look like a man.
Yeah.
And not like a small dwarf.
The opposite of the... I saw, there were so many fits here, I have to say. You go and they find these cute little, jackets they can put on, and they're perfectly sized for you.
Perfectly sized for me?
Yeah.
Like little baby jackets?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Can you get me one? Actually, never mind, I've grown. I forgot. It's not fake. This is actually my new height.
All right, we're gonna roll him back down to the player area. Doki, thank you very much for joining us. Hey, cut the camera. Good luck on your next game versus Dark Zero. Congrats on the win here and keeping it up in the tournament. Let's continue with our analysis. Map number 1 is on the chopping block, and our analysts are gonna help us out with it. Clubhouse. Mandy, what happened there?
What happened on Clubhouse? Lots of things happened on Clubhouse. I think that it was really FaZe that had this really off-pacing in their attacks. It just felt like each round that they went through, they didn't have to go through the checklist of Clubhouse. They were just keen to go for an execute whenever they felt like they had the opening to go for it. And as a result, we saw a lot of mid-round to late-round executes rather than the last 10 seconds, let's drop the kitchen hatch and cover everything type of executes. And I think it really caught G2 off guard. I think the unpredictability of it was really what brought FaZe over the line.
Yeah, I think G2 also really set an aggressive pace this game. They were looking for a lot of playmaking. They were utilizing that Ying. You could even say they were crutching off that Ying a little bit. Alamau, the number of times he managed to crack through these really hard to dismantle FaZe defense with a Candela or two. It was mighty impressive, and their aggression was also mirrored on the show floor. Alamau would not let up. I bet you they could hear him from Brazil. He kept going in, of course. He speaks Portuguese just like the FaZe guys, and he had a few choice words for him. But yeah, what a map for FaZe to hold on despite that really high energy playmaking that G2 brought. There's something about what the FaZe guys were able to achieve on their defense to just hold fast.
Now, moving on from map 1 into our second one in the series, and this is where G2 were able to tie it up. We went to Villa, starts with 3 rounds for FaZe Clan, and then the, I hope will be now infamous timeout happens on the reset, James.
Yeah, man, what a timeout. And I mean, we've already had a good chance to talk about it, but that round was abysmal. And Doki said there's nobody that knew it more than the guys on G2. When Frost jumps out the closet window and kills 2 guys, it leads to a flawless round, and G2 is looking lost. It doesn't get much worse than that, honestly. And I think partly that destroyed the G2 mental. Fabian comes in, and you can love it or hate it, but he had a... I mean, we can't show that on broadcast, can we? He said 17 different curse words during that tactical timeout. He was absolutely ripping into them, saying, time to wake up, you're dying slowly. But there were also some positive things. He said things like, we showed everyone in the group stage that we were the best team at this event. You guys can do it. You know you can do it. And so amidst that shouting match, there were some things that G2 managed to hold on to. Even though they didn't win the following round, they did bounce back and win the map.
I think an important thing to note with these kinds of tactical timeouts is that it doesn't work for everybody, right? For G2, they have the kind of players that can take that they're keen with just the hard-handed truth, the hard-handed facts. FaZe, on the other hand, are a completely different beast, right? G2, you're like pop-off team. They need that energy to do well. FaZe, they're super calm. They're super composed. They're at their best when they win the round and they're just like, yep. We won. You know, it's a completely different ballpark, right? It's just every player has their own headspace that they like to be in to play it, and G2 know that they need to be hyped up. You need Alamau screaming in the server, and that's where they're gonna be at their best.
Different kind of players. It's a sports psychology thing. Different kinds of players require different energy levels to perform at their best. Yeah. I think G2 is definitely one of those high energy teams, but of course there is a limit. It's the band, and you want to be within that band of energy. And we did see on map 3 during another one of G2's tag timeouts, Fabian was saying, I think it was to Doki and Blur or Doki and Benja.
Doki and Alamau.
Oh, was it Alamau? Okay. Well, he was saying, look, guys, you know, you're getting too excited. Calm down a little bit. You've just exceeded that range a little bit, and they managed to dial it in. It was quite impressive, particularly Benja on this map. 15 and 7. He popped off. He was huge on the openings.
Yeah, and I really want to hammer that point home that you're saying, James, because sports psychology-wise, yes, different players, different things. I say Fabian really had a perfect way of balancing it, and he doesn't need someone to defend him or whatever. Apparently there was some fuss kicked off about what Mr. Officer was saying last night, which I just don't understand at all. But he yelled at the team and really pushed them together in the right moment, because even Doki himself said, I had never seen him this way. This is a very different Fabian than what a lot of people remember from many years back in the day. For him to pick the right moment for the right move. Keep in mind, G2, to be very frank, have massive egos. These players have done a lot. It's massive egos that are on there. You come on, we know it. To control them, you need sometimes to just shake them up and wake them up. And that's exactly what happened in this case. Map 3, he reset back and said, you guys can do it. You have some issues, but you can fix it. I believe in you. You proved it to everybody. That's the difference that we saw in Map 3 theme.
Yeah, I think the thing with map 3 was that really the win condition of this map was that, look, FaZe, they're an unpredictable team. They have a plethora of, like, they have sweeps, they have rushes, they've got these methodical pushes. You kind of don't really know what FaZe is going to come into the attack, right? So it's really on the onus of your frontline IGLs. That's Doki, that's Alamau. They're on the roam to call, okay, guys, this is what FaZe are doing. Here's what we need to prepare for next. And just being on the ball with calling through the early to mid round to prep their team for what's about to happen next. And that's exactly what Doki reflected on the interview as well.
And we actually ended up with an attacker-sided theme park, which is quite rare. And to me, that was largely because of G2's attacks. And for me, that was so interesting because of the playstyle difference between map 1 and 2 and map 3. In my opinion, how G2 played it, it was no more Ying. Obviously, they'd banned it out for the previous 2 maps. Less execute heavy rushes, except for the one round they played the Monty Osa, and they were more methodical. They were unafraid to take a more step-by-step approach, taking map control, getting vert, nading out positions, and even though they had less hard breach than a lot of teams would pick on theme park, they still leveraged their gunplay and playmaking ability to succeed on these executes.
Who was our MVP of, I have to say, highly coveted and very close matchup that we had is Virtue. I'm not surprised. To me, this man is synonymous with theme park, especially I'd like to remind everybody with the foot shot back when Pengu was on his final days with G2. That was the EUL finals. What was it, 2020? It feels like it was ages ago, James.
I remember because I was doing EUL at the time.
You were EUL.
Old days. Yeah, well, look, Virtue had a fantastic series, especially I think as a player who does float under the radar a little bit these days. When you pick up fraggers like Doki, who are always in those opening engagements, they're the guys that you're often talking about. So it's nice to see Virtue get a bit of the spotlight, as he's now the longest running member of the team.
Yeah, look, we now have triple Australians on the broadcast just then.
Hey.
That was a bit dangerous, hey? Virtue, one of us, we get to claim him. That's exciting. But yeah, he's done really well on the server. I think especially going to G2, the new iteration of G2, he's had to pick up a very different role. Not only can he play the front line, but he's also had to pick up some of your more backline operators. Like on Clubhouse, we see him playing Hibana, for example, that kind of thing. He's that player that just needs to fill in what the team needs. And I think he's done really, really well in this role so far.
Well, speaking of doing really, really well, both of my wonderful analysts of Mandy and James, you look fantastic today. And that was it for this post-game segment. Congratulations to G2 for moving forward. They'll be playing Dark Zero in only a few hours. Commiserations to FaZe Clan, and they've been eliminated from Six Invitational 2023. We just launched Sonic versus Astralis, if you missed that, but we're getting ready for another game on B Stream. BDS versus Team Liquid in just a bit.